It's 7 o'clock, so as we normally do, we'll start with some old new business, but before that, I just want to do a roll call of the people who are here. We have Member Kent, Member McCamey, Member Grove, and our alternate member, Member Conley, will be here this evening and voting on any votes that we have. My name is Kim Crowa. I'm the acting chair this evening. I'm vice chair, and I do want to just say thank you to the former chair, Erin Joyce, who resigned a couple of weeks ago. She served for 8 years on the board, and she did a thorough and detailed job while she was here. So we will miss her, and we wish her the best. Member McCamey had served with her for a period of that time, so just like to turn it over to Member McCamey.
Thank you. Many of you probably know that Chairperson Joyce is a professional civil engineer, and she runs a engineering business with her husband Michael here in town. Her knowledge on projects that she applied was extensive and extraordinarily thorough. And not just from a technical standpoint, but of course running the business, she focused on a lot of those issues, so technical issues, business issues, and certainly safety. I think that every project that she worked on, she had the best interests of the families in this town, as well as her own family, which she's bringing up her children. So I just want to thank her for what I learned and from working with her, and certainly it is a wonderful advantage for this town to have such tremendous resources and people who are willing to volunteer to serve in these boards. So I just wish Erin the best of luck. Thank you.
Thank you, Member McCamey. Okay, so with that, we'll turn to the old new business on our agenda. There are some agendas in the back if people would like one or don't have one. I do believe there are some extras. When we get to the public hearings, we'll go over some of the details with respect to those, but the beginning are just the meetings that are not necessarily public hearings, although clearly they're in the public format. So the first one on our list is request for as-built approval for 197 Grove Street. And do we have a staff report on that?
Yes, we do. Thank you.
You guys hear me now? There we go. The applicant has requested planning board grant as-built approval on October 12, 2021. The planning board voted to approve a grading permit to demolish the existing retaining wall and reconstruct a new retaining wall for the expansion of a driveway to provide suitable access to the applicant garage. Staff has reviewed the decision that the plan, the as-built plan, as well as conducted several site visits. The site appears to be built in conformance with the record plans. In addition, the applicant has satisfied all conditions. Staff is recommending that the planning board vote to grant as-built approval with the following conditions as survived. Condition 1, Condition 5, Condition 12, Condition 14, Condition 27, Condition 28, and Condition 41.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. And turn it to the board to see if there are any comments. Member McCamey?
No questions.
Member Grove? Member Kent? Member Conley? And I don't have any questions either, so with that, I'll be looking for a motion on this application.
Madam Chair, I'll move for positive acceptance for the request for as-built number 2117 grading permit for 197 Grove Street. provided conditions.
Thank you. We have a motion by member McCamey and a second by member Grove. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. All right. The next one, we'll move to the approval of the meeting minutes for February 15th, March 14th, and April 11th of 2023. I'll see if anybody has any comments on those. Member McCamey?
No question.
Member Grove? Member Kent?
No questions.
Member Conley? None for me either. So I will accept it, looking for a motion on approval of those meeting minutes. And we have a motion by member Grove. Do we have a second? Second by member Conley. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. And move to but skipping right now the zoning amendments, moving to the budget update. Will you turn that over to staff?
If I may, through the acting chair. So just wanted to give the board a quick update. I submitted the department budget, which obviously includes planning administration and all the other jurisdictions within the department. And I will be attending the Ways and Means meeting next Tuesday night to present that, along with the community preservation budget. If any of the members have any questions, all the materials are on the website if they're interested in seeing any of the line items and the dollar amounts associated with those. And the budget does represent about a 1% cut from last year's budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Any members with any questions on that? Okay. And it's only 7:08. Director Santucci Razzi, do you want to move to the zoning amendments now?
If you'd like to.
Okay. All right, let's move to that now. So we received a staff report recommendation that I'm just looking for. Director Santucci Razzi, could you explain what this is?
Yes, I'd love to. Through the chair, as I had mentioned at our April meeting, I have been in discussions with the mayor on working on some categories, use categories and parking requirements for the zoning bylaw, primarily consisting of defining those uses and providing an appropriate parking requirement. So in the memorandum I've prepared, I have outlined the definitions for production studio, brewery with tap room, then we have brewery production, and then we have function conference facility. Pretty straightforward on the definition side, and what I'd be looking to do is to get permission from the board. Planning board is a sponsor, and what I would do is take this memo and turn it into a formal submission to the town council so we can get the ball rolling on these definitions. And I can answer any questions or review anything the board would like. Thank you.
Thank you. Member McCamey, do you have any questions?
Yep. Thank you, Madam Chair. I just asked the director, the function conference facility, obviously we have some in operation today, so how does that change, or you don't have any specifics?
If I may, through the chair, Member McCamey's question. So we have like clubs and lodges. So things like the Sons of Italy and the DAB, they fall under the club lodge definition, which is similarly related to an organization, and they happen to have a function room as part of that facility. This would be something that was separate from that. As you can see, the definition is a little bit different and doesn't have the tie to an organization. So a facility that was separate from a restaurant, this wouldn't trigger, or this wouldn't apply to a restaurant that has a function room out back, or somebody that sections off an area. This would be a standalone type of facility that can accommodate weddings, baby showers, meetings during the day, organizational groups, things like that. serving obviously food and beverages as well.
Member Grove, any questions?
Yes, Director, what did you use to formulate these different actions?
So what I did, you want me to review all of them?
Sure.
Okay. So for the function and conference facility, that's going to be a special permit use, and that could have different types of abilities to accommodate people, and the assistant director and I were talking different types of functions. Sometimes it's more cocktail style, people stand, and then also a lot of these types of facilities want outdoor areas for ceremonies, outdoor areas for a potential cocktail, and things like that. So that one is to be set by the planning board during the special permit process based on what that facility is going to provide. Thinking about a function hall versus a conference type setting, there could be different impacts from an occupancy standpoint and also from the type of actual function or conference that is being provided. We've all been to a variety of functions, we've all been to conferences. I've been to some conferences where the seating is almost similar to this, when you sit classroom style versus banquet tables, the rounds, 8 to 10 people. So that one will be set by the planning board. The brewery production, the 1 per 1,000 is exactly what we have for our manufacturing. So those facilities would be facilities that are producing malt beverages, beers, hard ciders, ales, and other crafty beverages. And that would be, again, 1 per 1,000, similar to manufacturing. The brewery with tap room parking requirement for the production area, again, similar to the manufacturing. And then the tap room, we have it 1 parking space for 3 seats, which is the same as our restaurant category. And then the production studio is similar to a warehouse in a sense, but a little bit more intense. So we looked at a parking requirement that was a little bit greater than your typical warehouse. No, that's from, so the brewery has 2, because that will have, the brewery tap room has 2.
Right.
The production area is going to be the same as manufacturing and warehouse, which takes into account a lot of truck activity. And then the tap room portion will be 1 parking space for 3 seats, the same as restaurant.
Will the parking activity be accounted for separately in the permit?
From a parking standpoint, that would be in a loading area, so that wouldn't really have anything to do with the parking ratio.
All right. Thank you.
Member Kent, any questions or comments?
No questions.
And Member Conley?
Just a comment, I want to thank the director, I think he will be helpful moving forward and say that I was the president.
Thank you very much.
Yes, and I agree. And sort of further to Member Grove's question, so I thought when I looked up restaurant, it had 1 per 3.5 seats. And so I was
The
wondering,
bylaw?
that's the internet version of the bylaw.
Okay.
I know there was another typo in there that came up one time. So, but that was only my question of why it wasn't consistent with the restaurant.
I can double check that, and if it's not consistent, I will revise that.
Okay. And then the other one with the brewery production only, just wondering if there should be a separate section where during site plan approval, there is the opportunity for the planning board to require additional seats if they have a particularly large tasting area for tours, but not necessarily any seats that would put them in the brewery with tap room section. Just so we can, I know as these evolve, there's different towns that have grappled with different aspects of the breweries. So I thought that might be helpful just to give the board some discretion if it appears that additional parking would be required for the use.
Yeah, that's a, if I may through the chair, that's a good point. We were kind of going back and forth with, you know, most of it is the brewery with tap room, but there might be some just standalone, and then we had, you know, the tours and things like that. So, we could put, along with that parking requirement, I would add, something additional, in regards to the, tasting, section.
So would you be looking for a motion on it at this point, or would you
I
rather?
have an additional question, through the chair. Would the board be interested in capping the size of the tasting area in that facility? So that it's kind of more of a small to medium sized tour, so that we can kind of, I can include something like that. Again, it can always be modified even once it's submitted to the council. But if that's something that the board's interested in, I can include something like that, we can always add to it or take it out.
That might be a way to deal with it.
Okay. So to your last question, Madam Chair, yes, I would be looking for a motion to direct the staff to clean this up, put the right numbers and sections, right format, cover sheets. I would prepare that, and I would have the acting chair sign that and then submit that to the town council as a planning board sponsored amendment.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. So if any members have any questions, feel free to raise them at this point on the updated discussion, but otherwise be looking for a motion with respect to sponsoring this proposed amendment. Right. So Member Grove asked if there's anybody in the audience who'd like to comment on it. It's not a public hearing. But if there's anybody who feels strongly about any of these, we could hear from them on it. There are quite a group this evening, so be happy to have some input. Okay, seeing none, I'll move back. If there's no further questions, we'll be looking for a motion on this proposal.
Madam Chair, I'll move that we direct the staff to put together some proposed zoning bylaw amendments concerning new use and parking ratios.
Second.
Motion by Member McCamey and a second by Member Kent. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for putting that together. All right, so we've now moved on to, we'll move on, it's past 7:15, so we'll move to the public hearing format for this evening. There's 2 items on the agenda. We are here, of course, tonight at East Middle School because of a prior engagement with the town council at the regular town hall meeting, so it's a slightly different format. The podium, as you can see, is up on the stage. When we have public comment, please come up to the microphone and speak into the microphone. Make sure to state your name and address for the record. Your comments on the applications that are being discussed. I know many of you were at the prior meeting. I'm sure some of you weren't. We're going to use a similar hand-raising format. I thought that worked quite well, so I'm going to ask people not to clap with respect to comments that are received, but to raise your hand if you are in favor of that, or you feel strongly with respect to agreeing with the speaker who's speaking. We're not going to have the time limits that we had at the prior meeting. We are going to give people the opportunity to speak, but we do ask that you keep your comments on point. Try not to be duplicative to comments that have been received, and to keep it with respect to the issues that are being discussed. There's many written submissions that have been placed in the record. Those are available online. There were a couple other submissions that were received today that will be online tomorrow. But we have had an opportunity to review the written comments and take a look at those, and we'll of course hear from the public this evening. And So with that, I'll turn to the first hearing on the agenda, which is 125 Union Street, Planning Board File 2301. And Director Santucci Razzi, is that, oh, Mr. Murphy, do you have an update on that?
I'm sorry.
Do you have an update on the 125 Union Street?
Yes, they did request to continue without testimony to June 13th.
Okay, thank you. So with that, we'd be looking for a motion to continue to June 13th.
So moved.
Motion by Member McCamey and a second by Member Grove. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. All right. So with that, we'll move to the one that I know you're all here for. Town Council Order 23-4, residences on Granite. This is the PUD application. So we will, do I need a motion to open the hearing? Or is it just because it's continued? No, okay, thank you. We did receive a staff report. I'm going to ask the staff to read the report and then turn to the public, then turn to the applicant, and then turn to the public after that, and then the board comments. Director Santucci Razzi, if you could.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So as pointed out, I did prepare staff report number 2, and that was based on the April 6th submission, which included a revised concept plan as well as revised text of the PUD itself. Essentially, the modifications since the last time this application was heard is the area encompassing the PUD has increased from 8.7 acres to 10.3. It now includes the land area best described as the former 99 restaurant building and the small parking area that's around it. If you come down this third site drive, essentially now everything to the right, all the way out to Lakeside Drive, comprises the PUD. So a lot of the report is an update from the comments that were made the first time. And one of the concerns that was raised in the first staff report was that the PUD as submitted did not essentially meet the purpose of the PUD. And what I have done is gone through and updated those comments, which the current proposal meets the purpose of the PUD ordinance. Would the board like me to read any of those comments?
If there's anything specific you'd like to talk about, but beyond that.
Okay. I'll highlight a couple things, Madam Chair. One of the takeaways is that the total number of units, including both the market rate units as well as the 55 plus units, has been reduced from 495 to 395, which is about a 20% reduction. The affordable housing component has stayed the same. The amount of open space provided has been reduced to 32%, where the original proposal was 33.6%. No new comments under number 4 in the purpose. And then under number 5, where it talks about promote retail and services uses closely related to the residential sections. The PUD now has introduced a quote business category that would be in the area of the former 99 and the parking area around that. And they've also talked about providing additional landscaping and buffering, which wasn't detailed too heavily in the revised submission. The next section of the report talks about the authority to grant permits, and essentially the PUD concept plan is something that is submitted to the council. Planning board provides a recommendation, council is the final authority on that. If and when that is approved by the council, nothing would go into effect until the proponent returns to the planning board for the PUD special permit. Again, I made some other comments about the size of the site. That's one of the criteria in here. Again, noting they did submit a fully revised text of the PUD. The business portion has been added. The land area has increased as noted. The open space was noted in my original report that we have open space as a zoning requirement, and then in this particular instance, there is open space, in my opinion, that will serve as a zoning requirement, or I should say, in and around, quote, the development areas, landscaped areas, parking islands, things like that. And then there is a open space use that is also part of this PUD. And given that the open space is promoted as a use in this PUD, the opinion of staff is that there needs to be more than that. So typically, in the highway business zoning district, you would have 25% open space as part of your zoning requirement. So now that we're saying, okay, we have some zoning requirement and we have it as a use, we should have a little bit more of that as well. Section D is the submission process section, which doesn't get triggered until if and when this is approved by the council and a special permit is sought, so not really applicable to the discussion this evening. The PUD zoning criteria, I'll describe it as dimensional criteria. I've included the table here in the report. And then we also have what they're looking to, so we have what they're providing and then also what they're setting as those standards as well. A lot of those mirror the highway business district and then incorporate the requirements for the PUD itself, such as land area. The next section of the report describes the area and describes the what they're providing for percentages. This area has been updated again because we've included additional land area. Individual characteristics of the project and site. I will read this comment. This is the new comment. I'd like to read this one out loud. The RGPUD as proposed is limited, as it does not take into account the entire South Shore Plaza property and plan for a proper positioning of multifamily residential that is integrated into the property of 1.6 million square foot regional mall. The current South Shore Plaza lacks so many attributes that consumers, customers, and planning professionals look for these days. The opportunity for repositioning landscape, hardscape, diversification of uses, and a more modernized layout of structures and parking is long overdue. The opportunity here is huge, but the visioning and planning is significantly lacking. Advancing a small piece of a 120-acre site with this RGPUD, absent a clear vision and long-range planning effort through a comprehensive PUD for the site is not appropriate. The next section talks about the open space, which I had mentioned earlier, in my opinion, is lacking. Those, I think, were the major takeaways. As you can see in the report also was posted to the web, so I hope those members in the audience had a chance to review it as well. Several of the sections, there are no new comments because simply my statements have not changed. And then if I may read the overall staff analysis and recommendation. The planning staff is very familiar with the South Shore Plaza property and surrounding area. This property and the South Shore Plaza in its entirety are viewed as a prime opportunity for planning and visioning. Given the history of the property in the South Shore Plaza, has been encouraged to do just that, to undertake planning and visioning in the arena of trends we see all over the country in retail and service areas. Opportunities for improvement and diversification of uses, building form, facades, hardscape, architecture, landscape, circulation, massing, parking, and open spaces all exist at this location. Yet what we have presented is limited to about 7.5% of the property. The RGPUD is just more of what we would like to see changed. Large buildings, limited open space, and limited integration to the surrounding area. To visualize 395 units in 2 buildings is still overwhelming. There are no buildings in Braintree with 230 residential units. This massing with a wrapped garage is not in line with residential scale that would complement the suburban location. Several retail centers in Massachusetts contain residential uses as presented in the RGPUD. The clear distinctions between the desirable centers and the current proposal are community support, a clear long-term vision of the property, and a fairly robust planning effort. A variety of questions come to mind. What type of uses are going to be there? How will it present itself visually? How will it be an improvement over current conditions? How will open space, landscape, and hardscape be modernized and serve a purpose beyond meeting a zoning criterion? How will it take into account current day mixed use, both vertically and horizontally? And how will it be balanced to promote good circulation and minimize parking and traffic demands? The planning staff finds no logical reason why a PUD for the entire property is not forthcoming. It would not be put into effect until such time a special permit was sought. A PUD for the entire South Shore Plaza would conceptualize potential redevelopment of varying types through the property. A PUD is often used to phase in redevelopment when trying to slowly implement change. It allows for flexibility when trying to attract tenants because the concept has already been approved. For the reasons contained above in the full staff report, the planning staff recommends the planning board issue an unfavorable recommendation.
Thank you, Director Santucci-Razzi. And I'll let that one slide because it was the director, but I would ask you to respect the hand raising going forward. Thank you very much. And I'll turn to the applicant.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Is this working? Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, Frank Marinelli. I represent Zom Living. Good evening, Chairman, Chairperson Prohar, members of the board. Okay? No. I guess we'll have to turn up the volume or something on the public address.
I think the director is going to check on
I
that.
mean, I can't get any closer.
Right, no, it does still seem a little bit quiet. Maybe try once again and just see if it's,
Testing. Is that better?
Clear back here.
okay, thank you.
Good evening, Chairperson Prohar, members of the board, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Frank Marinelli. I'm pleased to appear on behalf of Zom Living, a reputable national residential developer who has constructed 30,000 residences nationwide, $5 billion worth of residential development. With me is Jim Dunlop. Jim is the managing director of Zom. Also our traffic engineer, Jeff Dirk of VAI. Our civil engineer, Brian Dundon of R.J. O'Connell Engineers. Our landscape architect, Ian Ramey. And our planning fiscal analyst, Mark Fogier. Our development team is happy to answer questions relating to the development proposal. Zom is providing a much-needed $150 million housing and municipal revenue opportunity for Braintree. In good faith, ZOM listened on February 15. ZOM adjusted the proposal, reducing the development by 100 residences, 15 senior and 85 multifamily units. But we've not been afforded any dialogue or detailed feedback since ZOM filed the modification plans and materials over 30 days ago. We did receive by email an 11-page staff report late Friday afternoon, just prior to the weekend, which of course provides no time to consider or respond with one intervening business day. And as a matter of fairness and due process, we respectfully request that the planning board hearing be continued after tonight's hearing, as ZOM and Simon, so they can review, and ZOM can prepare and file a response to the 11-page report and address the many items. ZOM continues to work diligently in the hope of having dialogue on residential being added to South Shore Plaza, which is happening at large retail nationwide, except in Braintree. The ZOM reduced residential is still an over $150 million investment in our town. I'm a longtime resident of Braintree. My law office of 27 years is located at 439 Washington Street, North Braintree. I grew up in Braintree. I'm regularly at the town ball fields, and we shop at the South Shore Plaza. Apple, Davio's, Nordstrom, Target, Milton's Cheesecake Factory, Macy's, and 200 other retailers are located at the South Shore Plaza because it is a busy, diverse shopping center owned by Simon Properties, a publicly held real estate leader. South Shore Plaza is 60 years old and has evolved during that time. South Shore Plaza is a highly successful shopping center. Simon Properties is the town's largest taxpayer. As stated by Tim Fox, Simon Vice President of Development, in a letter dated May 8, and I have that here, and Tim states in pertinent part, quote, South Shore Plaza is one of the largest and most successful retail properties in New England, as measured by any number of metrics. The plaza has evolved to become the center of commerce, jobs, about 2,200 or over 2,000 jobs, I would add, tax revenue, and social interaction that it is today, and remains an important asset to both Simon Property Group and the community. We continue to be committed to its future success and believe that residences on Granite will be a beneficial addition. South Shore Plaza is not a blank canvas. It's a long-standing, long-established, valuable asset, highest in Braintree, highest taxpayer, that evolves, as stated by Mr. Fox. I know that as a land use lawyer of 35 years and working every day with commercial real estate owners. With changing market demands, hundreds of leases, thousands of square feet, existing assets like South Shore Plaza evolve. Proposing residential at large retail is not a one-off. It's evolution of a valuable existing asset. No one called the construction of Nordstrom or Target a one-off when Simon Properties invested tens of millions of dollars in Braintree, building Nordstrom and Target during the recession in 2008-2009. And now the proven evolution of large retail is to add residential, which is being done everywhere except Braintree, which ironically has the best asset for it, a 1.6 million square foot shopping center, the South Shore Plaza. While Braintree is not currently enabling reasonable evolution of South Shore Plaza, other communities are, and they're reaping the economic benefits from the synergy of housing next to large retail. Growth of revenue in Hanover with Hanover Crossing, in Dedham with Legacy Plate, in Westwood with University Avenue, and many others, with consumers and employees living there. People living at Hanover Crossing brought Market Basket, new retailers and restaurants. South Shore Plaza is the ideal location for adjacent residences. ZOM's high-end and senior living multi-family units is confined to the South Shore Plaza property. Let's make no mistake about that. The closest single-family residence is over 560 feet away, almost 2 football fields away, not a party in interest under the Zoning Act. People living in high-end residences at the plaza actually enhance security there. A year ago, the town auditor told the town council that Braintree was going in the wrong direction financially, that there was inadequate new growth, inadequate new revenue, that new sources of revenue, like new housing, were needed to fund increasing municipal costs. Nothing has changed in a year. There is inadequate growth, inadequate revenue sources, and rising municipal costs. There's no reasonable dialogue on ZOM's $150 million proposed investment in Braintree, which we hope to achieve in some form, to achieve a reasonable dialogue. Meanwhile, teachers are protesting. The town's bond rating is down with a negative outlook. We spend less money per student than the majority of Massachusetts communities. It's all reported. It's the facts. Last year, the town passed broad zoning relief to pursue $6 million in projected marijuana revenue that never materialized after a year-long process. It's basic municipal finance that vast municipal revenues come from conventional real estate taxes. With ZOM Living's $150 million residences, the conventional real estate tax is over $1 million gross each and every year to the town, and this is the reduced project, and approximately $600,000 net, plus an immediate post-approval payment to the town of almost $3 million of needed revenue in permit and utility connection fees. Yet, unlike marijuana zoning relief, which was granted broadly, an administration in search of revenue currently opposes enacting PUD zoning here for ZOM's $150 million investment that brings conventional real estate taxes of over $1 million gross, $600,000 net, and $3 million in permit fees to the town. Now, as stated by Ms. Santucci earlier, enacting PUD zoning is risk-free to the town. It just gives economic development a chance. And this is important. Section 612G of the existing Braintree ordinances provides that the existing zoning requirements continue to apply unless and until the planning board issues a special permit for development in a PUD district. Therefore, if a special permit is not eventually issued by the planning board for development in the PUD district, the current zoning requirements, highway business and residence B, albeit antiquated and unworkable, for the 10.3 acre site continue to apply. There is no risk in creating the PUD. If a development is not approved through a collaborative special permit public hearing process, then the underlying zoning continues to apply. And just look around at Braintree's alternatives to single-family homes. Braintree doesn't have new, highly amenitized apartments for seniors or younger people like those that are proposed here by ZOM. Without growth and new revenue, municipal services will be reduced, or Braintree taxpayers will pay more. South Shore Plaza is the ideal location next to a 1.6, it's the ideal location for housing with a $1.6 million square foot shopping center with easy access to the expressway. ZOM Living residential vehicle trips are not an issue, and we have the traffic report in the record, and Jeff Durr, transportation expert, is here. There's 3 entries to and from ZOM residential, to and from Granite Street. The vast majority of vehicle trips is to and from Granite Street and the expressway. As stated in the filed VAI traffic report, quote, traffic volume increases associated with the revised development program on local roadways will be less than 20 vehicles during the peak hours, or fewer than 1 additional vehicle every 3 minutes. A level of impact that will not be readily apparent over existing conditions, end quote. In other words, imperceptible impact. Our traffic expert, Jeff Durr, as I said, is here. School capacity is not an issue.
Excuse me.
Don't let the facts get in the way. Don't let the facts get in the way, but enrollment...
Attorney Marinelli, one moment. I'm going to ask everybody to be respectful. The board and the applicant is going to be respectful. When you're speaking, I'm going to ask the same, and let Attorney Marinelli speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Enrollment at the closest school, Flaherty, is down approximately 20% by 86 students. That is set out in Mr. Forgier's fiscal analysis. A total of 16 school-age children from the reduced zone living multifamily residences is what can be accommodated in the elementary, middle, and high school level. Elevation apartments, 492 residences, which is more than twice ZOM's 230 multifamily proposal. Elevation Apartments has just 22 school-age children. So the 16 estimated by ZOM in its fiscal analysis, it's likely even less than the 16, and it's all laid out again in the filed economic report, which is the product, by the way, of significant research by Mr. Forgier and conversations with the school department. I know that there are obstructionists who have put in 50 to 106 children, but that is baseless and it's sourceless. The 10.3 acres where ZOM high-end residential is proposed is a wasteland. Even page 9 of the planning board report, read by Ms. Santucci, characterizes the wasteland as an area that, quote, has become attractive to homeless people setting up camps, end quote. Is that safe for children? Is that progress for our town? What's the town doing about it with relocation of other services? Braintree needs the $150 million ZOM investment, which will produce high-end housing and millions in conventional real estate tax revenue and immediate $3 million in post-approval permit and utility fees. The issue is this. Braintree is either moving forward with facts, all of which support ZOM's $150 million residential proposal at South Shore Plaza and the need for new growth, new revenue, or alternatively, Braintree is going backwards based upon false narratives like NBCA, North Braintree Civic Association, showing a 10-story Quincy building that has nothing to do with ZOM's proposal, or them arguing, as they did, that seniors will be looking down at girls' softball fields and games that are hundreds of feet away. Those are false narratives. Since the last public hearing on February 15, ZOM has continued to work diligently in good faith with its modified project filings made over 30 days ago. We did not receive an 11-page staff report until after Town Hall had closed on Friday. Due process goes both ways, not just in favor of an opposition group and an administration that expressly has stated opposition to the proposal, and that opposition would be, quote, reflected in comments coming from the staff. We received the report not 7, not 10, not 20 days ago after filing 30 days ago, but one business day for ZOM or the development team to review, prepare, and file responses. We all have family obligations on the weekends. I had 5 baseball games. There are many questions and items in that staff report that ZOM will address, and the planning board should continue the public hearing for that purpose. It is ordinary and usual for a $150 million proposal, albeit reduced, to require more than 2 public hearings to date. Some things, like the mayor's inclusionary proposal, were on the agenda for months. The facts of the modification that we filed over 30 days ago are as follows. First, ZOM reduced the proposed multifamily residences from 315 to 230. 115 are 1-bedrooms, 26 are studios, 89 are 2-bedrooms. There are no 3-bedroom units, no 3-bedroom residences. The resident demographic is young professionals and empty nesters. The rent is over $2,500 per month. These are high-end, beautifully designed residences by ZOM, a national developer who has constructed over 30,000 residences. The 85-unit reduction is an over 26% reduction in the multifamily component. The 230 ZOM multifamily residences are over 20% less than the 338 residences at Lenox Farms. So while the development is more compact, which is what planners seek in order to increase open space, the number of multifamily units at 230 are significantly less than the 338 at Lenox Farms and the 315 residences at Jonathan's Landing. Multifamily itself is less than 23% residences per acre at the proposed site. Secondly, the active senior living residences have also been reduced from 180 to 165. When you add this to the multifamily, the density at ZOM is approximately 38 residences per acre, which is less than one-half the 80-plus units per acre at Landing 53, and it is also consistent with South Braintree approvals of Fraser Apartments and Hancock Street and Fitzgerald and Independence Avenue, and most recently, Wynn Properties is 56 residences, approximately 37 per acre, almost identical to what we have here in terms of density. ZOM's residences are unique, and we showed you the last time the balconies looking out to the dam, 32% open space, publicly accessible walking trail, community room, fitness center, swimming pool, indoor and outdoor amenities adjacent to the 1.6 million square foot shopping center. Thirdly, as Ms. Santucci mentioned, South Shore Plaza Simon Properties has added the former 99 restaurant building, approximately 16,000 square feet, and the related land, which is approximately 1.6 acres, to the westerly end of the PUD site, which brings the total PUD to 10.3 acres. A PUD can include, as was mentioned, business, residential, and open space. We don't rely on the open space as a use because you're only required to have two, and now we have three. We have business, we have residential, we have open space. Section 102 definition of PUD in our zoning bylaws requires two. We have three. If you want to call open space just open space, then that's fine. It doesn't matter. We've met the definition of PUD. For residential connectivity to South Shore Plaza's over 200 retailers and restaurants, the only thing a ZOM resident has to do is take a short, easy walk to Nordstrom or Target, and the resident is connected to 200 retailers and restaurants. Any other characterization of connectivity is strained. The stores are right there. The residences are on the plaza property, closer to retail than other mixed-use venues like Hanover Crossing, Legacy Place, or University Avenue. There is also easy connectivity to public transportation. The bus stop to the Red Line and commuter rail is a short, easy walk to and from the residences. Fourthly, ZOM is receiving ability from Simon Properties in the modifications that we presented 30 days ago to augment or redo the buffer and the boundary with Flaherty School. There will be thousands of plantings, a thick and high berm, and vegetative screen separating the senior living building from the turnaround in Flaherty School. Any assertion that Lakeside Drive will not be closed to residential traffic is false. Look at the plans that are part of the application. ZOM's proposal is to convert existing Lakeside Drive west of the roundabout to a walking path, period. With its landscaping and thousands of plantings, ZOM is also creating a generously landscaped boulevard that signals entry into the high-quality residences. And the district that is there, you see there's a boulevard in there that we are going to have heavily landscaped and you know, working with Simon on that. And also, ZOM residential, as I said, is buffered and confined to the South Shore Plaza property. And the only abutters east, north, and south under the Zoning Act are Flaherty School, the plaza itself, and the dam. Separated from Flaherty School and properties east will be strengthened by the elimination of Lakeside Drive west of the turnaround, installation of a high berm, and thick vegetation all along the school boundary. The modified proposal easily fulfills all 5 criteria of the PUD. First, greater variety and flexibility in the development of housing types. That truly, reasonably, is undeniable. Secondly, affordable housing, of course, is provided, 10%, undeniable. Open space is permanent, undeniable. Streets, utilities are constructed and maintained in a more economical and efficient manner, undeniable. We have our own trash pickup, snow plowing, maintenance, repair of driveways, etc. Not a burden on municipal services. And finally, on the purposes of PUD, promotes retail closely related to the residences. We are so close to the South Shore Plaza and 200 retailers and restaurants, and we are also developing the West Julian with the new 99 restaurant building, hopefully for more restaurants or a combination thereof, or maybe even a brewery and a vibrant outdoor district. Next, even with the density reduction of 100 residences, the residences on Granite produce over $575,000 in net revenue, as is shown in the updated economic report that was filed over 30 days ago, based upon the reduced number of units. Next, ZOM's engineering team has no reason to believe that there is any water capacity or sewage capacity issue. So on this point, ZOM offered to fund a study by the town's consultants now. But on April 5th, 2023, the administration told ZOM that they can't do the peer review on water sewer until the time of any special permit process. One would think the town would want or benefit by having that information now at ZOM's expense. Yet ZOM can't get town cooperation to have the town's outside experts conduct those studies of water capacity and Carmen Street pumping station at ZOM's expense. Part of ZOM's mitigation, of course, would be to address any related water and sewer item. There was comment the last time about what is known as the echo effect. And Mark Forgier is here to address it if necessary, but there's no cause and effect that creation of 165 senior living units causes that many homes to be sold in Braintree. Homes are bought and sold for various reasons unrelated to active senior living production. There are many variables and no reliable data of a causal effect. It's a known opponent assertion, but not valid. As low as 5% of the active senior residences are actually occupied by prior residents of the host community. Here, that would be 8 to 10 Braintree homes, and it's unknown whether a purchaser has 1, 2, or no children. So there are the variables that make it not a valid comparison. Mark Forgier will tell you that RKG, who has acted as a land use consultant for the town of Braintree, has studied the topic. And Mark quotes RKG's conclusion on the echo theory from another project, where it was stated that RKG believes the town should not assume any echo effect from the proposed development. An echo effect study involves many variables, and there is rarely enough indisputable evidence to justify the effort. Next, ZOM Living installs and maintains and strives to provide snow plowing, trash removal. A single home neighborhood with the same number of residences places more stress on schools and infrastructure, water, sewer, trash, plowing, than the same number of apartments. ZOM Residential is no threat to any Braintree single-family neighborhood. Braintree's single-family neighborhoods are mature and built out. ZOM residences are buffered, part of the South Shore Plaza property, and ideally situated next to the 200 shops and restaurants of the South Shore Plaza, a synergy that is seen throughout the country, particularly where large brick and mortar need to compete with online sales. You know Braintree businesses that are excited about the prospect of residences being added to the plaza. On January 26th, the administration stated in an NBC rally that number one, the administration is opposed to the ZOM Living proposal, and number two, that the comments of the administration's staff will reflect the administration's opposition. Notwithstanding that predetermination, ZOM has been proceeding in good faith and diligently for over a year, but neither ZOM nor Simon has been afforded dialogue on the plaza's reasonable evolution of adding housing which has synergy with retail and is being done at retail centers throughout the country. We appreciate the work of the planning staff, as always. But having just received it, we can't help but notice certain things. Ms. Antucci talked about the 25% open space requirement. That is generally commended in a business area. ZOM is 28% greater than the required 25%. at 32%. And yet 32% is labeled as deficient. In the 11-page staff report we received late Friday. Why? We don't know, but it's certainly consistent with the administration's statement that the comments of its staff will reflect the administration's opposition. Affordable housing for those whose earnings are capped at 80% of the average median income is generally commended at 10%, if you have affordable housing at 10%. For decades, housing was produced in this town with no affordable requirement. Zom Living is providing 10% of both senior and multifamily as affordable, and yet it's labeled deficient in the 11-page staff report just received. Why? We don't know, but it's certainly consistent with the administration's statement that the comments of its staff will reflect the administration's opposition. However, as a matter of law, it is not deficient. 10% affordable meets state law. And in fact, a new law, Section 3A, requires a study in certain instances if a town tries to impose more than 10% because a higher percentage discourages the development of necessary multifamily housing. Braintree is an MBTA rapid transit community. Page 5 of Friday's report states that residential lacks integration with the South Shore Plaza. We don't really see what we see, I guess. I guess we're being told we don't really see what we see. You walk through Target or Nordstrom's front door and you're connected with over 200 shops and retailers and restaurants. But that's apparently not connectivity of Zom residential with 200 retailers and restaurants. Why? We don't know. It's certainly consistent with the administration's statement on January 26th that the comments of its staff will reflect the administration's opposition. Page 12 talks about minimized parking and traffic demands. Why? Again, we don't know. There's plenty of parking, and there's no traffic impact as evidenced by the filed traffic report. Again, it's consistent with the administration's statement that the comments of its staff will reflect the administration's opposition. And then in page 12, the overall analysis and recommendation which Ms. Santucci read, which states there's, quote, no logical reason why a PUD for the entire property is not forthcoming. A PUD for the entire South Shore Plaza would conceptualize potential redevelopment of varying types throughout the property, end quote. The town is apparently telling the town's largest taxpayer, $8 million a year plus meals tax, to put the whole plaza in a PUD rather than the town enabling discussion on the reasonable evolution of adding residential that the real estate owner wants to do, which creates new revenue for the town and is being done nationwide at large retail centers, but again, not in Braintree, where the South Shore Plaza is a perfect asset for the evolution of adding residential to existing retail. Finally, on page 12 of the report, immediately after asking for a PUD for the whole plaza, the next sentence is, quote, a PUD is often used to phase in redevelopment when trying to slowly implement change, end quote. That's what we're doing. Reasonable evolution to a 1.6 million square foot shopping center is adding residential in today's times. That's the reasonable evolution today in the real estate industry by the people who are the experts in it. And we're fortunate to have one of the global real estate leaders as the owner of the South Shore Plaza. Zom filed its modification plans and materials over 30 days ago, and obviously receiving the 11-page report after the close of business on Friday, it's really deemed receiving it yesterday, Monday. If the board is not prepared tonight to issue a favorable recommendation on the reduced Zom residential at the South Shore Plaza, a $150 million investment in Braintree, then we respectfully request continuance after this hearing tonight so that Zom and Simon can respond to everything that has been stated in Friday afternoon's report. The $150 million proposal, or some modification of it, is critically important to the plaza and critically important to Braintree. Zom would encourage meaningful dialogue from all quarters, and we are willing to participate in good faith with meaningful dialogue. We have had none. We have been extended none. and even after filing 30 days ago the modified proposal. We hope that we're moving forward as a community with housing and reasonable evolution at the plaza and the critical need for growth and municipal revenue in this town and the tremendous economic benefits represented by zone residential or some modification of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney
Happy to answer
Marinelli.
questions.
With that, I'm going to turn it over to public comment. We received a letter from Councilor Flaherty, who regrets that she's unable to be here tonight. She did ask us to read her letter into the record. I noted before there is written correspondence that's available online. I know we've received some written and verbal communications from other councilors, but considering that Councilor Flaherty is at the Ways and Means meeting, I would like to fulfill her request and read her comments into the record. So I'll just start with that. So Councilor Flaherty says, I regret that I am unable to attend this meeting tonight to make these remarks in person, but I am grateful to be able to have my thoughts read into the record. Thank you very much for your time and attention to these concerns. I have reviewed the revised proposal for a PUD, and I find that it falls short of what I think the community can support. Although the number of units proposed has been reduced, the scale of the development is still something that would fit better on a city block than it would on the proposed site. It's not necessarily easy to visualize the appearance of the proposed development from the design plans, but just for reference, the exterior building wall would extend nearly 2.5 football fields beyond the former 99 restaurant. The overall effect is a giant block of housing behind a giant enclosed mall without any meaningful integration between the two. In order for housing to be meaningfully integrated onto Plaza property, the first step is for Simon Properties to reimagine the property as a whole and develop an overarching plan for revitalization that will serve modern consumer habits as they have changed in the last few decades. In that scenario, housing could be a valuable component of the new design, but this PUD represents a poorly considered piecemeal approach where a holistic plan is what is needed. Additionally, the affordable housing component, as it is proposed, is insufficient. If the town were to permit housing on this scale, the inclusionary component would need to be greater to merit this level of density. The point was made by me and by the planning department when the original proposal was reviewed, and it has been ignored. Finally, the amount of open space that has been included in the revised proposal is actually even less than the original. The amount of open space that would actually be available to the public is insufficient to constitute a legitimate secondary use, and the suggestion that it might strikes me as disingenuous. Thank you, Julia Flaherty. Okay. Thank you. And thank you. Oh, nice clapping for me. Just kidding. Okay. Sorry. Please proceed.
Kelly Moore, 46 Hollis Ave, Braintree. First of all, I want to comment about the clapping by Mass SJC ruling public bodies can no longer silence dissent. But we will clap.
Excuse me, Mr. Moore.
Okay?
I have asked for no clapping. Everybody here who is in dissent or in favor has an opportunity to speak. It is a difficult auditorium to hear. The microphones are not what we're expecting at Town Hall. I am asking that you raise your hands and be respectful during the hearing, as we will be to everybody who wants to speak, whatever their comments may be with respect to this proposal.
We disagree. Good evening, members of the board and planning staff, especially members of the audience, which there are many. Give yourselves a round of applause.
I will ask you to get off the podium, and I will silence the meeting, and I will continue it if that's what you would like to do.
Illegally.
No, that is not illegal. We are providing an opportunity to speak in favor or dissent, and you are speaking out of character and you are being disrespectful. Would you like me to make a motion to continue this hearing to another date, or would you like to proceed under the ground rules that we have discussed and are very reasonable for an open public hearing.
Not if they're illegal rules.
Sorry.
Testify.
To the members of the
Okay.
Braintree Planning Board,
I would like to make a motion to continue this hearing to June 13.
Why don't you go home?
I think we know how the audience feels about this project, and we'd like to be heard.
I would like you to be heard as
You're
well.
interrupting.
Although I have a very busy week.
With this, I like to be heard.
Excuse me, Mr. Moore. You are the one who are creating a problem here. You are going to have an opportunity to be heard. Everybody in this room will have an opportunity to be heard with their voices, with a representation of their name and address according to the rules of a public meeting, and I am not going to be bullied into listening to your revised rules for this meeting. So I would like to ask again, if you would like to abide by the rules that I put forward, or I will again make my motion to continue it, and I know that's not what you would like, without having the opportunity to speak. So which way are we going to go forward here?
You're asking me if you want me to continue your meeting.
No, I'm not. I will ask the board members if they're in favor of my motion or not. But I'm
Just go
asking.
on! Just continue the meeting.
So,
Come on.
let me say this to you guys.
Let's
Let's just do this. Let's just respect what Ms. Crohan has asked us to do, because we have a lot more important items to cover.
I agree, thank you.
My question is, how much arsenic is appropriate to drink? We have been given a dose, and now the dose is less, but it is still arsenic. It also seems that Zom's counsel has had plenty of time to read and respond to staff's report, identified specific pages and paragraphs, and we just spent the last 45 minutes listening to that. But you want to kick the can down the road. That's exactly what you want to do. So the members of the Braintree Planning Board, on behalf of the North Braintree Civic Association, I again rise in opposition to the Zom Living's proposed project, round 2. Not only does the NBCA oppose this project in its current form of 395 units, we oppose it in any form other than what zoning would allow, which would be anywhere between 40 to 72 units. We will not accept any other compromises. Additionally, I call upon the Planning Board to follow the recommendation of Braintree's Town Planner and submit a negative recommendation to Town Council. I request you to call for this vote this evening. When a motion is made, I would request someone second that motion. Immediately and without delay. Do your job without positive prejudice for the applicant. The counsel for the applicant, Zom, claims that specific zoning request, or PUD zoning, is justified and only applies to this project. Our concern is that not only does this council request exemption relief from 30 existing bylaws, but they also claim this will not open the door for other projects which would fall into the same category, when in fact, that is exactly what it will do. Should this board make a positive recommendation to this project, it will invariably provide the same assumption for any subsequent and audacious requests. The applicant could have proposed an acceptable size and number of units for this site. However, we realize their typical project size and scope across the country falls well above our acceptable zoning parameters. In fact, we believe the applicant is taking advantage of the perilous business position in which the Joshua Plaza finds itself given Simon's Properties' lack of investment into this site. As a result, Simon Properties is actually requesting that the town of Braintree allow the applicant to bail them out of their predicament. This is not our problem to solve. As this board certainly most realizes that this project is dead on arrival, you also realize that it is opposed by a significant number of Braintree residents. As such, we request this application is rejected. Thank you for your time and attention. Sincerely, Kelly Moore, President of the North Braintree Civic Association. I'd like to also respond to several miscalculations by council. The vehicle trips per day, typically by engineering standards, are 6 per unit. 395 units, roughly 2,400 vehicle trips. He claims that they'll just go out, use the expressway, come back via the expressway, Granite Street. I didn't know there was a Shaw's on the expressway, or any grocery stores, or barbershops, or hair salons, any of those. Those are all in Braintree. They'll use the Braintree streets. School capacity, just don't buy it. Never said 100. They're even implied 100. This wasteland, as it's been characterized, currently pays taxes to the town of Braintree. I remind council that the report actually hasn't changed much from a month ago. So I would suggest that council in the future come prepared to have a discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Bob Melchiona. I live a block away on Howie Road. I'm here tonight to speak on my heart. My heart goes out to the residents of Braintree, especially those at this meeting who opposed this monster project. All of our hearts and integrity have gone into this great town of Braintree we call home. To allow this monster project would be destroying us. I also come with a heavy heart. My wife Laurie was a nurse for 2 schools, Flaherty, South Middle. She was also director of school nursing and member of the Board of Health. Not only that, Laurie was the driving force behind the closing of the back entry to the mall and Motel 6. Laurie was tragically killed in 2020. The town of Braintree has since honored Laurie's memory at the end of Lakeside Drive, which is called Laurie's Way, not around. They also honor her with a plaque and a bench in her honor. A monster project like this would destroy the integrity and hearts of Braintree along with Laurie's Way. Don't let a monster project destroy Braintree, a town we call home. Thank you.
Alan Flowers, 48 Fallon Circle. I would urge you to have unfavorable recommendation tonight and don't kick this down the road, because that's what the developer wants. It's a classic. You know, they come in with a wildly unreasonable proposal and then scale it back a little bit and then delay, and hope the opposition will go away. Well, we're not going away. And this is still an unreasonable project that will put an unreasonable burden on the town of Braintree. Thank you.
And thank you to those of you who are respecting the hand raising. I do appreciate that.
Hello, my name is Chris Cameron. I live on 83 Central Ave, and I would like to speak in support of this project. Massachusetts is in a housing crisis right now. There are simply not enough homes for people to live in. This is driving up the prices of homes for everyone, and it's making it increasingly hard for first-time home buyers to buy homes, people like myself. This is causing hundreds of thousands of people to leave Massachusetts. There's been 110,000 people that have left Massachusetts since 2020. Building apartments in Braintree will also help Braintree itself. It will raise tax revenues. This will be revenues for firefighters, teachers, policemen, infrastructure, and it will revitalize South Shore Plaza, which is an important economic asset for the town as well. And lastly, I think this is an important climate measure as well. We need to build more housing near mass transit, and Braintree has the Braintree Red Line that goes right through town, and this is an important measure to kind of avert climate change as well. Thank you very much.
Excuse me. Once again, people are going to be respectful. Everybody gets a chance to talk. Be respectful.
Hi, Liz Page, 137 Stores Ave. To the members of the planning board, planning staff, and also to town council members, I will be sending this letter. While I realize that staff has given this revised proposal an unfavorable recommendation, I believe the impact on the abutting neighborhood is only addressed in a very clinical manner in this report. It is important that the planning board and eventually the members of the town council have a more realistic understanding of the impact on the residents of the Flaherty neighborhood and in turn on all of Braintree's residents. Going back almost 28 years ago, the North Braintree Civic Association, town officials, and the owners of the South Shore Plaza hammered out an agreement to close Lakeside Drive to all but emergency vehicle access. The gate was erected. This gate separated us, the neighborhood, from the South Shore Plaza. It created distance. In recent years, the South Shore Plaza has tried, including now, to develop that very same area abutting our neighborhood. This proposal will have a detrimental impact on this neighborhood. The gate always served to separate the neighborhood from the high-density development of the South Shore Plaza. But recently, various crimes ranging from drug busts to neighborhood lockdowns due to shootings are threatening this same neighborhood. Now with this proposal, a large 5-story, very dense project is being proposed exactly up against the property line. There is no buffer zone proposed to protect and shield this abutting neighborhood. Also, can staff please explain to me, through the chair, how a developer can use publicly owned or the publicly owned portion of Lakeside Drive for their own open space bike lane and walking path? This is in the staff report on page 6, the last paragraph. The Flaherty School and neighborhood consist of low-scale single-family homes and a 1-story elementary school. This proposal is not compatible with the long-existing neighborhood in either size, scale, or style. There is no denying that. The area being considered for this proposal is currently partially wooded. That wooded area serves as a buffer zone for some of the neighbors. When that vegetation is removed, the noise generated by this large, dense development will travel across the dam to the residents of the Parkside, Gale, and Rita Roads areas, in addition to the Flaherty area. What was once a quiet neighborhood shielded from the noise and bustle of the South Shore Plaza will never be quiet again. The current view will be replaced with 2 huge looming apartment buildings that bear zero resemblance to the abutting neighborhoods. These are 5-story buildings looking down over a much smaller scale, single-family home and a 1-story elementary school neighborhood. Everything about this proposal is incompatible with this neighborhood. I ask that you, the members of the planning board, and eventually the members of the town council, please deny this PUD zoning request and enforce our current bylaws. And I request that you please take a vote tonight. Thank you for your consideration. And I would also like to add that when people are leaving Massachusetts, yes, housing prices are expensive, but let's not forget the tax rates, and I think that's the biggest driver. Thank you very much for your consideration.
Director, would you like to respond on that?
Madam Chair, yes, I would. The drawing isn't up on the screen, but I believe the question from Ms. Page was, why is the developer using the public portion of Lakeside Drive? And if you look at the map here, I'm sorry, I don't have this to put back up on the screen. This white section is the public section, which is not shown as a shaded color and part of this. And then the green part down here is a private portion in which the South Shore Plaza owns the fee in that section.
Thank you for the clarification. Ms. Page, would you like?
Yeah, 1 second. It doesn't really clarify to me how they're using the publicly owned portion as part of their walking path and their bike path. How is that permitted? It's referred to on page 6 of your staff report.
So actually, thank you for pulling that up, whoever put that up. So if you look at this map, there's a white section that's labeled Lakeside Drive Public. Now, that area, I think what the developer is saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, is there would be absolutely no reason whatsoever to have a public way in that location. And if the town was favorable on this proposal, that the town would look to create that area as green space as well. But as shown on their plans, they're not showing that as part of theirs and part of the green. So, like I said, if this is not favorably acted on, there's really no further action needed. If this is favorably acted on and the town would like that area to become green space and part of a walking trail, then I believe that ZOM is willing to do that. If not, it would stay the broken up and pavement that's there now.
Okay, but for the record, I don't believe that the town should be handing over any property to this developer.
They wouldn't be handing it over for clarification.
Okay, thank you.
Justine Huang, 25 Lakeside Drive. I wasn't sure I can present it with my PowerPoint, so I got some pictures. With the high-function special needs kids, I know a picture and a voice were speaking more than words. That's why I would like, you might see words in South Shore Plaza, but this stack of picture, I would like to introduce you what Flaherty neighborhood is, why we're there, why we're here today to fight for this. To begin my speech, I would like to share, if we might share a video that just the sound from Flaherty School during recess on a warm day when I open my window. Is it? I don't know. So I just want to show you that how innocent those voices are. During a warm summer, spring day, or during the snow day, kids will play in front of the schoolyard. So if you're looking at the first page where I have is Flaherty School, we bike to a school, the kids bike to school run event, and it's one level special needed school for Braintree. Elementary school hosts 1 to 4th grade. The second page I just want to show you is how close this development is to Lakeside Drive, to Flaherty School field. It might name it Granite, Residence Granite, but basically if they want it to be true, it should be Lakeside on Lakeside Residence. So you can see the impact, how close it is to the girls' softball field for South Braintree, and our school user fund, and how close it is to the development area that they host party. We do the best in town Halloween party day. And if you're looking at the third page, this is just want to show you some picture of after school pickup cars lining up on Lakeside Drive, but also if you're looking at the right side is exactly the picture where the car ran through our fence and ran speed down to Lakeside Drive. That's what my concern is. Even this fence up, cars still drive, run through it, and lucky that nobody got hurt within that incident. If you're looking at the back of the 4-page, you will see there are trees right now, as what they say, bury the sounds and privacy from our local residents. Those trees has been grown mature. Those trees has grown with buffer and higher elevation than the parking lot where we've been protected. If you're looking at the proposed gate, there's no gate here so far. The document might say so, but from the picture perspective, our gate does not exist there. So my concern is if the gates open down the future, I don't know. And also the residents who have clubhouse opening up to our Lakeside Drive, direct walking distance of, parties. I don't know who can prevent that. That's my concern on safety. And if you look in last page, this is where we talk about Laurie's Way. Why we have it there? Because it's all about the Braintree resident. It's all about why we call it home. At beginning, where we talk about Joyce, I'm not good at term, but her best interest in town is for our town's current residents. So I hope that can be continued carried. When you're thinking about this development, please think about our residents, why we call this home. Today, it took me an hour and a half driving from work back to home, Austin to Braintree, only 15 miles. And took me 20 minutes just to get on the highway. So you say there's no traffic impact? I do not believe that. Also, when we talk about building housing for bringing the resident to where you allow them to work where they live, and my question to this is, why are we not bringing company into town to create more opportunity for existing residents to work at our town instead of building residents for people to work in the new opportunity? I cannot answer that question. I would love to cut my traffic. If the commerce, I'm going to challenge the South Shore Commerce and Braintree Economic Commerce, bring the business and opportunity in town is apartment rental so that our current residents can have more opportunity. I don't have to drive an hour and a half to go one-way commute. I can pick up my kids, I can drop off my kids, and I'm here tonight is asking the planning board to reject this project and in the best interest of our current resident, and I'm going to challenge the South Shore Chamber of Commerce and the Braintree Chamber of Commerce to help us bring in more commercial business, help us bring in more business so that someone like me, full-time mom, can work locally instead of traveling, spending 2-hour commute just because there's no opportunity in Braintree. Thank you.
My name is Richard Wenzel. I live at 74 Spring Street in Braintree. I've been a homeowner in Braintree for 60 years. I've watched Braintree grow from a very small community to what it is today. In those 60 years, I've had the opportunity to be a town meeting member, serve on the Finance Committee, and be on the Water Sewer Commission, and its chairman for a period of 6 years. The presenter for this project talked about Braintree's water, which I had brought up on a previous occasion. I'm not sure what consulting reports he's looking at, but they're much different than the ones that I looked at when I was on the Water and Sewer Commission. I'm telling you right now, with what we have in climate change right now, we cannot predict from one year to the next year as to what our water capacity is going to be. Currently, we have a full reservoir. In January, we had an empty reservoir. We had 3 or 4 good months of rain. We're very lucky. We don't know what the next 3 or 4 months are going to provide. Aren't we going to be in a situation where we don't have any water again? If that arises and we have to tap into another water source, such as the MBTA, there is a $20 million buy-in. That's on the water side. On the wastewater side, the pumping station that services the South Shore Plaza was built in the year 2000. That pumping station cannot handle 395 units. It certainly couldn't handle 495, but it can't handle 395 units either. So that'll have to be rebuilt as well. You're looking at another $5 or $6 million there. For those reasons, I think the planning board should at least hold this project up until we get better numbers onto what our water supply is going to be. Thank you.
My name is Mike Keeney. I've lived at 12 Common Street in Braintree for 45 years. Before I start to talk a little bit, that gentleman made a very good point. And I would like to see guys like me, I was in the building trades for 54 years, get in contact. Braintree residents that have people in the Edison with the backgrounds, like that worked all these years. He knows a lot. The only problem is, as we get older, is going to go away with this. And that's a good point you just brought up. Well, getting back to what I'm trying to talk. 12 years, I live on 16 Common Street, which is the second house down from that Halver Street I live on, for 45 years. So far on my street, and it's not to talk about myself, but so far in that house I live, we had 2 trees come down over 60 feet high because one car hit them and knocked them down. My barrels have been knocked down to the point that it's all over the street. And the policeman that came by helped me get it. So I went up to the town and they said, well, we'll help you out, because it's $200 a barrel. Top of Common Street, and like I said, on the second house down, a car came through and hit his gas meters. They were talking about evacuating the town. Not on Common Street, they said the whole town will have to go. And finally the gas company got there and shut it down. It's a very interesting street I live on. Something's always going on. In traffic, I was involved, I'm in the union building trades. And we were involved down here with negotiations with Simon Property. And that was about 1972 to add the addition here. And I was also involved with the North Braintree Civic Association. And we negotiated with that. Every person on Common Street that bought a steak down at the hotel for going down and talking to them. But they're a pretty good outfit. I don't know how they are now. But these are issues, these are so different issues. When I feel like, I don't think there's enough talking going on with naturally people on Braintree and Common Street. I mean, we're getting suffocated. The actual traffic per day going by my house is up to 5,000 cars. 2,000 miles. I take the meeting, you know, the excuse me, just for a minute. You know, the count on the cars, and in the 70s, they gave me a meter today. Well, I talked to a gentleman today, and he just told me it's 5,000 cars outside our house every day. I'm dying from emphysema. I don't want to know what people want, Chris. We shouldn't be put up to this abuse. And no one's mentioned Common Street and all the talking you've been doing. No one's mentioned Common Street and the residents there and the people that live behind it. And I didn't hear one thing about the MBTA. There used to be buses that ran down there. They're going to bring them back. Down Common Street, a residential street, they're going to bring MBTA there. And not one of you is saying a word about it to me. I mean, I just don't know what's going on. I've lived here a long time, and this is a good town. But this isn't right, but we've been, the neighbors, people in this town, we're getting abused, especially around this plaza. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Hello. My name is Maria Bonfiglioli. I live on West Street in Braintree. However, I'm reading this letter on behalf of Joe Coyle, who is on Parkside Avenue. Dear Planning Board members, I would like to address concerns related to the RGPUD application before the board. Unfortunately, this is not a straightforward cookie-cutter application. The application is a twofold. It is to establish a PUD district and to adopt a bylaw amendment submitted with the application. The reason for my concern is that the communication provided by staff to date, per a March 21st email from the planning director referring to staff report TCO 23-004 stated, "My staff report was about the PUD application, not the ordinance itself." The planning department, as the experts in zoning, are counted on by the town, all boards, committees, and residents for providing their analysis and expert opinion. Because staff has focused on the PUD application, there has been no guidance on the ordinance itself until a very brief mention of a use table revision in the May 5th, 2023 staff report number 2. Based on my comments above, I hope to receive clarification pertaining to the following questions, comments that can be shared in writing with the town council, who will be approving authority and who are not well versed in zoning. Number 1, please confirm that this is a request to establish not only a PUD district, but to also approve section 135-612.1, Residents on Granite Plant Unit Development Overlay District, which established specific guidelines for this specific project. Based on the application, it clearly states that once town council approves this, the next step is to go to the planning board for a special permit to construct the development. See section 5 of the application. That infers that the district has been established and their proposed bylaw has been adopted. Therefore, the applicant's proposed zoning ordinance would be an integral part of this application approval. Number 2, if the response to number 1 is yes, then all requirements that deviate from standard practice and or current law should be brought to the attention of the planning board and the town council as part of the staff report or in some form of written communication. A, in my opinion, the first step required should have been an application submitted to the planning board by Simon Properties for a major modification under their current special permit. If granted, then the rezone application would be submitted. This would have prevented violations I will mention in B, C, and D below. B, MGL Chapter 48, Section 5, Braintree Zoning Bylaw, Article 15, Section 135-1501, Zoning Amendments and Town Council's Procedures for Rezoning Applications, state the property owner is authorized to submit zoning amendments, a non-owner is not. To date, Zom Living is not the owner. None of these laws procedures state that an authorization letter from the property owner will allow submission of a zoning amendment. Is this violating all of the laws and procedures stated above? Per Braintree zoning bylaw 135-612C6, the site under review shall be in single or consolidated ownership at the time of application. This was not the case at the time of application. Does it still remain in violation? D, has the P&S restriction to provide retail and service use been removed? E, based on A, B, C, and D, this application should not have been accepted and acted upon until Simon Properties and the applicant met all of their legal responsibilities. F, the town's use table has been exempted by the applicant, replacing it with their amended use table. As it stands, this proposal would allow all of the uses listed by the applicant as a use by right. That means that 2 buildings that far exceed anything ever built in this town would have minimal oversight. There are projects far smaller than this, granted with a special permit, that have 100+ conditions that are put in place to protect both the applicant and the town. Staff did mention the use table for the first time in the current staff report, but only referred to the recently amended business use. G, the applicant's proposed bylaw, written by the applicant for this specific property, provides exemptions for themselves for 30 regulations under the Braintree zoning bylaw. This can actually be considered over 30 exemptions as their proposed bylaw itself amends 135-612 and various sections of 135-612. To the best of my knowledge, this town has never had a specific bylaw for a specific applicant actually written by the applicant. If approved, this is setting a very dangerous precedent for the town. 3, the applicant's attorney wrote to the town council stating that approving this application would cause no harm to the town because if the planning board did not approve a special permit for construction, the existing Braintree zoning bylaw would apply to the parcel. This is a true statement. However, by adopting this bylaw, whether it is ever acted upon or not, sets a precedent for the future of Braintree, allowing any applicant in the future to do the same. Per the town charter, the planning board shall exercise the powers and perform the duties provided by the town's zoning ordinances. The planning board shall also serve as the special permit granting authority as provided in the town's zoning ordinances. I ask that the planning board exercise their powers and perform their duties and support and enforce Braintree zoning bylaw, which to date has been completely disregarded and are violated since the outset of this application submission. A favorable recommendation would be contrary to the board's responsibilities as specified in the town charter. I respectfully request that the board provide an unfavorable recommendation to this proposal and move this on to the town council, who we hope will listen to their constituents and defeat this project as well. Thank you for your time and consideration. Respectfully, Jill Coyle.
Good evening, Steve Shawshaw, Hollis Ave. Through the chair, is it okay if I just show Melissa something real quick that just related to what Liz Page was talking about? I think this might. You know, I was going to talk a little bit, Steve Shawshaw, Hollis Ave. I was going to talk a little bit about the financials, but I think Mr. Wenzel summed it up best. You have received reports about the water and sewage. Their numbers just don't make sense. So I would just ask this board, when it comes to students, education costs, water,
traffic, you know, you just can't believe what they're telling you. Mr. Marinelli pointed out that the marijuana was a $3 million proposal in this town, and this board heard it and gave it a favorable recommendation. But I think the lesson to take away from that is not we should keep doing that, but that every developer comes in here and says, if you approve this project, the streets of Braintree will be paved with gold. But as soon as they walk out that door, you hear, oh, it doesn't really work the way we planned it. We need to make it bigger or smaller or more intense. And that is always the case. And it's incumbent on this board to get the right answers if you really want to delve into the financials and the water issues and everything else. But I would argue that's not this board's job. ZOM is not asking you to look at this project. The town council is asking you to look at a zoning amendment. The concept plan is part of that. The financials are part of that. But if you look at the red line version of the actual zoning amendment, almost nothing has changed since the beginning. They've changed the requirements to special permit, and then they added the business use. When you look at those red lines, almost nothing else has changed. So why do you want to keep dragging this out to talk about things that are not really in the purview of the planning board? I would ask that you give this an unfavorable recommendation tonight. All these other issues will be addressed by the town council. They don't have to be addressed here. You know, to Ms. Coyle's point, the letter that was just read, this board has not actually discussed the zoning at all. All the focus has been on a concept plan, which is just a concept plan. It's not necessarily what would actually be built there. The zoning itself is full of contradictions, errors. I don't know if they are not competent to write zoning or if they are purposefully being deceptive, but as Ms. Coyle pointed out, they keep insisting that a special permit is required, and yet the use table has shown every use is allowed by right in this district. That they updated that use table in the most recent revision. They added a new use after all the discussion about special permits, and they added that use by right. It's hard to imagine that anybody could be that incompetent, and they're not purposefully creating a conflicting bylaw. You know, Ms. Coyle also touched on the 30 exemptions. I can see Mr. Marinelli over there shaking his head saying it's not 30 exemptions. What the bylaw says is the following sections of the zoning ordinance are not applicable to land within the RGPUD district. And it goes on to list 30 sections of the bylaw. Call it whatever you want, but some of the most important of those are 503I. That is the section that requires a special permit to issue findings that a project is in harmony with the bylaw and does not create a negative economic effect and is compatible and in harmony with adjacent properties. They are exempting themselves from that part of the special permit process. You will also notice traffic has come up repeatedly. They are exempting themselves from section 1403, which is the section that says the rules and regulations for traffic shall apply to every application for a special permit. How can the special permit granting authority, in good conscience, recommend favorably on allowing any special permit to bypass the majority of the special permit requirements? And lastly, you know, I'm glad that finally the applicant has acknowledged that the purposes section of this bylaw are, as they said, central to the evaluation and recommendation. So Director Santucci-Razzi in her staff report noted that of the 5 purposes, they are deficient on 2 and 3. That's affordable housing units and preservation of open space.
So number 5 is clearly not met because there's no integration between the commercial and the residential. This might be picking nits, but let me just say they do not meet number 1 either. They are talking about allowing multifamily housing on this property. That is already allowed in the Highway Business District by special permit. So they are not actually increasing the variety of housing types on this property. And number 4, facilitates the construction and maintenance of streets, utilities, and public services in a more efficient manner. Their argument there is that these are private roads. That's more efficient than public roads. Well, that's true, but they are already private roads. So the creation of an RGPUD district does not in any way make it more efficient. So they are deficient not on 3 of the purposes, but on all 5. And let me just say lastly, that the notion that 32% is enough open space, that requires you to believe that this parcel exists in isolation from everything else. If you pull up an overhead map of this parcel today, you will see 4.5 acres of old growth trees, native trees. What they're proposing is to end up with 3.2 acres of open space. That is a net reduction of well over an acre, close to 1.5 acres of open space. That in no way can be considered promoting the permanent preservation of open space. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Rob Kadayer of 306 Washington Street. I'm here in opposition to the project. Over the last couple months, we've received mailers from the developer trying to frame themselves as negotiating in good faith. But in reality, per town regulation, I don't see it. I mean, this seems more like a shakedown than a negotiation. Going from 500 to 400, I believe that by zoning bylaws, there can really only be about 70 or so. It's under 100 units in that area. So down to 400, they're not meeting us halfway. They're not even meeting us a quarter of the way. Braintree's your home. Braintree's my home. Braintree's all of our home. And as with any home, there's rules with which the residents of that home set. Now imagine some guy just shows up to your house, crashes on your couch, demands that you rewrite all the rules to meet his accommodations. Well, in the meantime, 400 units, we'll call it about 1,000 people, and that's lowballing it. Invites about 1,000 of his buddies while slapping us, the residents, with the bill for the utilities and also public safety. Braintree Police is probably going to be overstrained by having that many residences in a small area in an already problematic area. In seeking over 25 exemptions from the town's rules, they're expecting special treatment for themselves and for us to bend over backwards for them. But I mean, show of hands, how many of you think that you could get 25 waivers to build anything on your land? We wouldn't. Why should the developer, who is just in it to make a buck for themselves, and as the previous gentleman stated with the marijuana one, where we were projecting a $3 million increase to the town's budget? Let me tell you, I worked with contract management, I worked with EVM. Whatever the contractor usually says, it never ends up being that good. That's something that we see month after month in my job. This development would strain our resources, being electricity, water, schools, roads, police department, and the fire department. It'll harm the local wildlife, in which there is plenty of back there. I've seen deers, turkeys, and on top of that, you get a big development like that, you'll normally stir up the rats into the houses. So members of the planning board and, well, members of the town council, who I know they're busy today, but The people of the town elected you to represent their interests, not the interests of an out-of-state developer seeking special treatment. As I stated in February, if one developer gets special treatment to build a monstrosity of a project like this one, it'll be open season when other developers catch wind. It's like when you're at Castle Island and you get something from Sully's and you get the French fries, you give a seagull one, about 30 seconds later you're going to be swarmed by them. And that's what Braintree would be to developers if we give one special treatment, give them the French fry. As Councilor Flaherty stated in her letter earlier today, the building is looming, it's imposing, it's monolithic, it does not fit the character of that neighborhood. In my opinion, it looks more like a slightly updated version of a Soviet Khrushchevka than something that fits the small town vibe. There are better ways for the town to build and attract money. Small constructions, townhouses, both of which respect regulations, would be fine with most people. But a colossal 400 plus unit development, which larger than the high school, and with a very prefabricated, boxy, and urbane aesthetic that looks more like something that you would see in the seaport than in Braintree. Braintree residents don't want it. Put it to referendum on the ballot in November, I guarantee it gets shot down. As a lifelong Braintree resident, and I've lived here my whole life, I was born the week of the O.J. Simpson car chase. That tells you I'm getting old, but I mean I've lived here my whole life. And as somebody who's made this town my home, like grow up here and staying here now, like I love this town. I'm sure all of you love this town as well. I very respectfully implore the town board to protect this town, its resources, its environment, and most of all, its soul. Do not allow this amazing and unique place to lose that soul. Do not put it on a path to become a zombified husk. Thank you. And go Seas.
Good evening. My name is John Cusack. I live at 45 Hickory Road. I did live in the North Braintree Industrial Plaza area from 1963 to 1975, so I am familiar with the area. In looking at this project, and based on some of my experiences working as a civil engineer, a lot of projects like this typically prepare a project narrative that identifies the scope of work, summarizes the design details, the permit requirements, all the site preparation requirements, environmental mitigation, traffic analysis, schedule issues, and cost estimates. The narrative wouldn't be the final version of the project, but a starting point to document the progress and changes made to it. The project team did provide conceptual design drawings, traffic analysis, and cost evaluations, but other information was limited and could not be evaluated completely. I summarized these items in several categories. Number one, geotech engineering. Number two, the so-called South Shore Plaza Boulevard. 3, utilities and storm drainage improvements. 4, building and site features. 5, fire protection and public safety. And 6, 99 restaurant site. And I'm just going to go through some bullet comments on these categories we identified. I'm interested in the geotech engineering subsurface report because that would indicate groundwater levels and the amount of ledge on the property. And that's important because it would be information that would enable you to help plan the stormwater management coming off the site, because obviously going to be increased stormwater rates coming off the site. And what makes me nervous about having ledge there, that would make it possible to do groundwater recharge. And what's made me suspicious about that is the project is named after a rock. With respect to the boulevard, the design team has taken ownership of it. And what I kind of determined in the meantime there is the existing roadway is actually too small. Because with the new residential units going in, they're going to have to add a fire lane. The existing roadway is 30 feet curb to curb, and they're going to need either 3 lanes or 4 lanes. There'll be 1 lane on the south side for a fire lane. There'll be an eastbound lane and a westbound lane, and then someone's going to make a decision if you want a parking lane on the other side. That can be resolved one way or another. That's a planning board matter. But looking at this situation with the roadways, you can't park on the same side of the street as where the buildings are going to be. So that kind of makes it difficult for any type of service vehicles come here, ambulances, delivery people, postal service carriers, and it also kind of flushes out a problem I have with these drawings. Is the drawings don't have elevations or cross sections. So there's no real well-established front door where everything goes to, because you're going to have deliveries, you're going to have pickup people, and I just can't seem to find it. Going to the utilities and stormwater drainage, developers going to figure out the requirements for those. They're going to carry the expenses for it. But here again, it goes back to the subsurface soil conditions and whether or not you have substantial amounts of lead. Because the utilities will include water, sanitary stores, storm drainage, electrical communication, and a couple of street lighting strings. And it's going to be 1,000 feet minimum of each of these. So you're going to have basically a mile of utility work done on the roadway, relatively close to the school. So noise and construction issues are going to be a problem during the academic year. With respect to the building, people say the building is too big. I kind of summarized the 2 areas of the project. I came up with 3.84 acres for the surface of the buildings. And to compare it to something else, I took a look at Boston Garden, and that's 2.7 acres for a building footprint. So the residents on Grand Street will have a bigger footprint than Boston Garden. Another building comment is related to the parking spaces. We're adding up the number of units, the number of parking spaces. It looks like everybody's going to get an average of 1.5 parking spaces. That's basically too small. Everybody needs 2. Now, the other aspect of this project which interests me is the fire protection requirements. And I went through the review comments provided by the different town departments. And the most interesting one was by the fire marshal. We had 2 sentences. He said, number 1, we've got your plans, we take a look at them, and what the development team should do is to follow the codes with respect to the Mass Comprehensive Fire Code and the NFPA standards for fire situation. So I decided to look those up, and it's more complex than you would think, because in reality, you have to deal with the town ordinances on the fire department. You do have to go through Mass Comprehensive Fire Codes, National Fire Protection Association Fire Codes, and the International Fire Code. And from what I've seen so far with the design team, they do not have a fire protection engineer on the team yet. Now, what came out of these different requirements and permit standards with these different agencies was the fire department needs access all the time to the building. So it seemed to be okay in the front of the building because you got the street there. The problem's quite at the back of the building because it looks like going through the regulations, you need a secondary fire lane for apparatus response. So looking at the site plan right now, at the 2 ends of the project, it doesn't look like you can get a fire truck in there, which is only the beginning of your problems. Due to the height of the building, your first response fire trucks are going to be ladder trucks, not pumper trucks. And here again, using the standards for the different fire regulatory authorities, that roadway going in as a secondary fire lane has to be either asphalt or concrete, capable of supporting a 75,000-pound fire truck. So, I mean, there's no simple answer like letting the fire trucks come in on the walkway, walking around the park as a recreational facility. You need a real fire lane. The other problem with the existing site plan, which we're on the picture right now, is you have a section where you've got two wings of the over 55 building, which has a swimming pool in the middle of it. So basically, there's no way you can get any type of fire response into that area. You can't get a ladder truck in there, and a pumper truck doesn't do you much good after 30 feet or 3 stories. So I think that's kind of a defect in the overall design, and to me, that's a big deal. The other issue, if you do put a secondary fire lane in there, is you're probably going to need water, because going through the regulations again, they advise trying to string hose around the existing building. And it seems like if you get to 400 feet, that's like the magic number. You shouldn't try to string hose after that length. You have to go to a secondary source of water. And my closing comments have to do with the 99 restaurant. And this is kind of a silly one. If you look at the most recent drawings, it was on the first one of the drawings too, the proposal includes having 17 cars parked against the wall of the west building. Now, going back to the Mass State standards, they have a specific reference that says 16.3.3.4 says the required width of access roadways, which you're going to need to get on that side, shall not be obstructed by parked vehicles. So I think those 17 vehicles go away. So in summary, my general criticism of the project was that it didn't do a great job on providing information to do a proper review. And like one other thing I just thought about standing in line is no one's made a claim on the project they put solar panels on the roof, which would be some type of environmental mitigation. So that kind of leads me to suspect that there's going to be HVAC equipment on the roof. So as I said, these are some comments based on some of my experience, good and bad, as a civil engineer, but I just don't think this project is going to work. Thank you.
John Herron, 41 Walnut Street. Revised proposal, minor changes, same concerns. 400 units in an area zone for 60 to 70 units. Still 4 to 5 stories, next to Flaherty School and neighborhood. The same 30 bylaw exemptions, including noise, light, billboards, are still present. Granting these exemptions will set a very poor precedent for future projects. We are updating our master plan. The vision statement includes compatibly scaled and well-designed housing options that harmonize with the surrounding context of the neighborhood. This project does not meet that criteria. I urge you to provide a negative recommendation to Town Council tonight. Thank you very much.
Madam Chair, thanks for allowing us to speak. My name is Mark Moore. I live on Howey Road, which is right down the street from Flaherty School. You know, the gentleman up here that, spoke about being born when he saw the OJ chase, it reminded me of, if the glove doesn't fit, you mustn't fit. Right? This glove does not fit. Okay? So you must acquit this project. So, secondly, I don't think that any project in a residential neighborhood where I can put a golf ball on the Flaherty School, hit my pitching wedge, and hit the property of Zom living, residents Zom Grant, is a good idea. Now, I don't care if there's 100 units, 50 units, I don't think anything in that area fits the use. I would just like to remind, where did it go? Planning Board overview on the website, right? Planning Board focuses on minimizing and regulating the impacts the town faces relating to land use and development, particularly those conditions affecting quality of life, public welfare, traffic, and public safety. So this project would negatively affect all 4 of those aspects that you guys strive to provide our town with, right? So I was listening to Attorney Marinelli, and he spoke about 3 projects, right? Talked about Jonathan's Landing. What are the abutters of Jonathan's Landing? A cemetery, a leaf dump, and one side street. Okay? Let's see, what was the other one? It was Lennox Farms. What are the abutters of Lennox Farms? A bunch of trees. That's the abutters of Lennox Farms. There's a bunch of trees in a neighborhood way in the back. And let's not forget Hanover Crossing. Not one residential abutter on that project. Not one. It abuts Route 3 and it abuts Route 53. There's not one residential neighborhood on that entire project. Now, I'm not opposed to construction. I work in construction. I was the technology and security foreman on this project in this building. Right? My kids were here. I helped build this school. I'm not opposed to construction. I've worked on residential. I typically work on a lot of schools and other projects. Now, if this project was proposed at the old Homonetics building on Wood Road, I don't think there'd be an uproar. I don't think so. But the fact that this project is being proposed in the backyard of a school at a reservoir across from where there's going to be a ton of noise is just not responsible for this town to allow that to be built there. I really don't think so. And I would just like to, let's see, where'd this go? The planning board also reviews and provides recommendations on applications submitted to the zoning board of appeal and licensing board. And I would recommend a negative recommendation. Thank you.
There's 2 more after me that I've done. My name is Randy and I live at Walnut Street, right around the corner. My name is Lorraine DeAndrea, and I live on Walnut Street, right around the corner from Clary's School. I second what most of the people here said tonight. I'm not going to repeat the majority of it, but to the gentleman before me, that was one of my questions, is why that location? You know, you've got Armstrong Park that could be redeveloped. It's near supermarkets, restaurants, and tea. You know, why not redevelop that? You're not having an impact on the neighborhood. The biggest thing for us is in the neighborhood is the impact on it. The school, you say, oh, it shouldn't be an issue there. I have a child going there in September. We had to wait and get put into a lottery, and we just heard back whether or not he was going to be able to go there or shipped to another school. So more kids, it's going to have a huge impact. So they really need to look at the numbers with the kids in the school right now, because they're totally wrong. When you have to wait for a kindergartner to find out, based on a lottery drawing, whether or not your child can go to that school or not, then you know the schools are full right now. So those numbers need to be rechecked. But those basically, I was going to say a lot more, but everybody else has already said it. But you are going to have a huge impact on our neighborhood. We already have it now with the mall. This past weekend, I don't know if anybody else in the neighborhood heard, you could hear gunshots and the cars racing this weekend. And it was echoing off the dam and from the plaza. And this is what we deal with now. So now you're going to add more stuff over there, and it's just going to get worse. And that's more for the police to deal with. So I just hope you guys look at the whole picture for us and not just them. There are other locations that we could build and that wouldn't have any impacts on them, on the neighborhoods. But I hope you do look at the whole thing and let them look for a different location to build that doesn't hurt people in this town. Thank you.
evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, Mr. Marinelli, and staff, and fellow citizens of Braintree. I'm Norm Gibbons. I live at 55 Calvin Street. One quick comment before I make my remarks. I'd like to say thank you to the staff and to the board for being proactive in creating new uses in the table in the zoning law to reflect the kinds of businesses that we want to welcome to town that are becoming more and more part of modern society. That's a much needed improvement. With respect to this project, I'm not going to repeat what everyone else has said, but I'm concerned about putting in a building that is in excess of the town's normal height limits. This is probably going to be a problem for the town's fire departments because their ladder trucks probably don't have long enough ladders to reach the top floor. This is also just too much in too little space. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure out that a single bedroom apartment is likely to be rented to a couple, married or not. And a couple probably will have 2 vehicles. The allocation of 1 parking space per bedroom means that that single bedroom apartment only has 1 parking space, even though the occupants likely have 2 vehicles. Where are the surplus vehicles going to park? If you want a good first-hand look at what this meat problem does, just take a ride by the old shipyard on Howard Street in Quincy. They put up an apartment building across the street from the old shipyard that doesn't have enough parking. And when you drive by there on Sunday mornings, there's lines of vehicles on both sides of the street extending out into the travel lanes in both directions, parked overnight because there's not enough parking space in the project. Where are the overflow project vehicles from this project going to park? Maybe some of them might try to park in some of the South Shore Park Plaza's parking lots that are normally reserved for plaza business, but I think the plaza takes fairly dimly to vehicles being parked there that's a lot overnight. The alternative would be on Lakeside Drive. So in the morning, parents come to Lakeside School to drop off their children, and we've got lines of vehicles parked on both sides because they haven't left yet, creating, I think, a fairly major safety hazard. Amen? And I just don't know what that's going to be. I think the number of units needs to be scaled down. And this doesn't even begin to address the number of parking spaces required for employees of the apartment complex. The number of parking spaces required for the businesses that are now part of this development for their employees and customers. I think we have a big problem. We also have the issue, of course, of the town's water supply. And I don't think we have enough open space on this parcel. I would like to see 50%. And I would like to see the number of affordable housing units be sufficient to bring the town closer to the Section 40B requirements instead of taking us further from the Section 40B requirements. If any kind of apartment complex is going to go onto the plaza property. Thank you all for your time. And thank you for your consideration. And thank you. I hope you will vote not to recommend or vote an unfavorable recommendation on this project. Thank you.
I'd like to thank the members of the board for giving us all an opportunity to speak tonight. And my name is Patrick J. Leonard Jr. My wife Norma and I live at 27 Parkside Circle on the shore of the Braintree Dam. And we are totally opposed to this project in any form. I'd like to thank BCAM TV tonight too. Dave, the technician, is up there. I think it's very, very important for the home viewers to hear the superior expertise. I'm honored to stand here tonight with my neighbors the research that's been done by so many people to present this project in such a clear way so that the folks who could not be here tonight for any reason really understand all aspects of this project. So thanks once again to all of you for inviting all of us and for BCAM TV to give the chance to everyone to hear all of this meeting. I'm a history teacher by profession. I've taught in international schools and schools of Massachusetts. I've been a teacher, a vice principal, and a principal. So the education of children is a major thing to me, and history is part of my DNA. Braintree is one of the most historic towns in the United States. It's the birthplace of 3 presidents, the first signer of the Declaration of Independence, and the father of West Point. Our place in our nation's history demands that we protect our historic architecture, our precious green spaces, and our appearance as a New England town. We must not allow massive buildings which will forever destroy the appearance of Braintree as we know it and as we love it today. At a previous meeting, and it's been mentioned several times tonight, it was said this project requires variances of over 24 zoning codes. No project should even be considered unless it complies with the existing laws. There may be reasons in the evolution of technology to evolve a zoning code, but to ask for this number all at once for one project, I think is unreasonable, unacceptable, and should not even be considered. It's my understanding also that this project will involve the cutting of a very large number of trees. At a time when cities and towns across the country and really around the world are trying to preserve green spaces, I do not think that any project which is going to destroy large numbers of trees in the town of Braintree should even be considered. No one in the town of Braintree is under any obligation to make life-altering changes simply to benefit the profit-making projects of a real estate developer. Our combined efforts as the people of this historic town of Braintree should be to prevent projects like this. This massive development is planned to be right next to an elementary school, giving the school children and their teachers over 1,000 new neighbors, along with the guests and service providers of those neighbors. I said to you that I was a teacher. My wife runs the daycare at our home, so I work with people now from 3 months of age to about 4 years. Prior to that, grade 6 to university. Working with children has been my life. The concern I have with this project is how it will affect our children. Who are our children? In June, I'll complete 78 years on the path of life. My children are not children anymore. But I define our children as every single child in the town of Braintree. And we have a responsibility to all of them. Every person in the town of Braintree has a moral obligation to protect our children and make every effort to give them a pleasant, productive, and most of all, a safe educational environment. The construction of this massive project, so close to the school, will bring about a change in our children's educational environment, which is simply, to me, as a professional educator, unacceptable. There is no question that something of this size, whatever berm is made, whatever tree is planted, whatever adjustment is made, is going to change that neighborhood. You change that neighborhood, you change the lives of every person in that neighborhood. An adult can withstand the changes, but a child is greatly influenced by those changes. And those changes are going to be a negative influence for every single child in that school. And I know from the little people I am honored and proud to work with every day that you have to be so careful of what they hear and see and do, and we need to protect them. The eyes and ears of many developers are going to be on this meeting because it's as important to them as it is to us, but for the opposite reason. If this project, with more than 24 variances, or any variance in the existing law, is approved, we will soon be targeted by other developers with other massive projects. I love the comment the gentleman made about the seagull and the French fry. That was really good. I'm going to use that one again. I already did use it again. But it's no joke. It may be a laughing matter when we say it here, but it's no joke because it will happen. I'm class of Braintree High School, class of 1963, U.S. Army, class of 1968, and I've seen the town change too. Colonial buildings destroyed to make gas stations. Beautiful Victorian buildings destroyed to make hamburger stands. We can't create something like that in the area of an elementary school. We've been told this project will generate, was changed. The meeting in February said $800,000 a year, and the representative of the company said $600,000 a year tonight. So the project's going to generate $600,000 a year in tax revenue. We have not yet been told what it will cost the town to provide resources of all types for the over 1,000 residents of a complex of this size. And many of the people tonight alluded to the resources that would be consumed by a project of this size. In conclusion, the town of Braintree is not for rent for $600,000 a year. The safety, security, and futures of our children and of all of the people who now make Braintree their home, who live here now, cannot be bought for any price, by anybody, for any reason. I lived overseas for more than 20 years. I grew up here. I went to the Lincoln School, to South Junior High School, to Hollis, to Braintree High School. This is my town. My blood is here. I am proud to stand here as a citizen of Braintree, to be able to try to defend our town against any organization which is going to affect all of our people. This isn't only about a piece of land next to the Flaherty School. It's about a piece of land in the town of Braintree. That is what this is all about. It affects immediately the area next to the Flaherty School, no question. But it will affect every other place in the town of Braintree too, because, as I said earlier in this presentation, open the door, all those seagulls are going to come flying right in. I most respectfully ask the members of the planning board to vote unanimously against this project and to do it as soon as possible. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jennifer Wadlands. I live at 37 Parkside Circle, and thank you. I know it's late, so I'm not going to be lengthy here, but I'm actually a member and I'm the chair of the Master Plan Committee, so the fact that the residents of the town are against this project is absolutely no surprise to me. We had over 1,700 people respond to a survey regarding what they would like to see and not see from this town, and 95% of them said that they would like to see from the town, and that they do not want to become a Quincy, and they do not want to see large-scale, multi-unit projects in town. Now, I know that at some point with MBTA housing, that could become a reality around the T-station, but certainly in the neighborhood, it shouldn't become a reality, and it shouldn't go forward. You probably might remember the night of that March comp zoning meeting. I just happened to review it today. I literally sat down and decided to watch it. So we can see and we can hear the voices of this town and what folks want and what they don't want. And I really hope as you are sitting here tonight and planning for the town, and I know it's a tough task, so I'm not discounting it at all, but I hope that you will consider what the residents really want. There were 680 responses to our housing section, and I am happy to forward them all to you, that you can have all the data that was collected from all of these sources, so you can understand as you sit here in this role, which is a very important role for Braintree, that you understand what the residents of the town want. So part of the master plan, and it was read a little bit, but we're in this process, and I've heard you in other meetings mention that the master plan process is underway, and we need to respect the master plan process. So I really hope that as we go forward, this whole process that we've done will be, I guess, the integrity of it will be held up. But basically it says in 2023, Braintree will be a well-run, picturesque, welcoming family community that prioritizes and protects its residential neighborhoods. Enhance community vitality with careful and strategic growth policies that preserve our residential neighborhoods. This project is not preserving. It is not protecting this neighborhood. You are taking a single family street, shutting it down, and putting an apartment complex. As you sit here today, if you think about your single family street, how would you feel if it was shut down and a large scale looming over you apartment complex? It just doesn't make sense. I guess if the club doesn't fit, I would you have to acquit. So I respectfully request that you respect the integrity of our residential neighborhoods when voting, and understand the full impact and the implications of your vote on this neighborhood. Thank you.
Tom Latini, Howard Road. Well, anyways, this is all about the children, okay? You say it the way it is. Harmon Street, Walnut, coming out of the Platte, that's a shortcut, everybody knows that. West Street, Walnut, coming to the Platte, that's another shortcut. I had 2 instances to talk about. A guy coming from the plaza, going up Walnut Street, cutting down Howard Road. My wife gives me a call, terrified. This young boy laying in our driveway, bleeding from the mouth. He was hit by this person coming from the plaza. She thought it was our son. It was a tack boy. His teeth, he lost teeth, he ended up in the hospital, I don't know how long. Anyway, he made it. If you go up Walnut to Hollis, in Walnut, there's a black pole with a sign on it that you'll have to forgive me, I'm so pumped up. Looking crazy. The Conway boy guy going to the plaza from West Street, cutting down Walnut, hit him on his bike. He ended up in the hospital in coma. He died. We don't want to lose any more children from these people cutting through the plaza. I don't know what to tell you. That's it.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Stephen O'Brien. I live on Pilgrim Road. I'm going to start off as a resident first, and as a resident, I'm going to ask you to reject the proposal. However, I wrote this back on March 14, 2023, and I wanted to make sure I read this into the record. Now I'm putting my other hat on, which is the town councilor hat, because I am the town councilor for District 4, as many of you know. I wanted to come up here last because I felt like, as in my regular job, my council job, I listen to them first, because they're what matters. Not marijuana money, not developer money, but what they want. And that's why I come up here, and that's why I rise against this. Dear planning board members, as a representative of the town council, please accept this letter in objection to your action with respect to the above council order at your February 15, 2023 planning board meeting. The issue presented to the planning board is solely a petition by the applicant to the town council. The planning board's action is clearly outlined in the staff recommendation dated February 13, 2023. I know there was an update. I did not review it to see if this changed. By Melissa Santucci, Rossi, Director. In that letter, the director lays out the board's commitment pursuant to section 135-612. The property owners are seeking permission from the town council, which requires a recommendation from the planning board. However, what occurred at the planning board meeting is a negotiation by the applicant with respect to a presumed granted special permit. In accordance with 135-612C1, the site under review shall be located in a PUD zoning overlay district as approved by town meeting. However, the PUD zoning has not been approved as of the date of the February 15th meeting. Further, in accordance with 135-612C3, the concept plans for the property must be submitted to town meeting for approval prior to submission to the SPGA, which is the planning board. Since town council has not approved the zoning, discussions with respect to a special permit should not take place. The only consideration that should take place is found in 135-612D1, a pre-application conference. The applicant shall confer with the SPGA to obtain information and guidance on the preparation of plans, surveys, and other data. However, the SPGA during February 15, 2023 meeting allowed the applicant to go into greater detail of special permit requirements, which is not in harmony with the planning staff guidance. Director Santucci-Rossi is clear in her staff report throughout when she highlights, and I quote, "is not application at this stage of the zoning process." Now comes Councilor O'Brien respectfully requesting the board at the March 14th, which now is today because of continuances, meeting, follow the recommendation by Director Santucci-Rossi, which states, when evaluating a development, and in this case a PUD concept, we must first ensure the purpose of the ordinance is met. Based on the comments above, the planning staff is of the opinion that the purpose is not met. The planning staff recommends the planning board issue an unfavorable recommendation. And I ask you to return the council order back to the full town council with an unfavorable recommendation. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Respectfully, Steve Howard. It has already been submitted. Thank you.
Any additional public comment?
If I may, thank you, Madam Chair. If anyone here this evening has the comments that they made in writing, if they are willing to, if they could submit those to us this evening. And if not, if they're willing to email them to us. It's just we want to make sure we reflect the record properly. A lot of testimony was given this evening, and our recording secretary, Louise Quinlan, has been spending endless hours making sure that we do that with minutes that are very lengthy. So any consideration to submitting those is greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. And just checking, is there any other public comment like to speak on this? Ask for board comments at this juncture. Member McCamey, questions, comments?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just asked Mr. Marinelli a question, if I could. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Marinelli. So I heard you earlier suggest that we should have a continuance, and you know, because you received the material just recently. So I guess my question to you is, if we do a continuance, are we going to hear anything different? Is anything going to be modified, or is there going to be any new information that's going to be introduced?
Yeah, as Mr. Dunlop said the last time, we could very well have modification. We've been trying to get a dialogue, Member McCamey, and I think the board knows the difficulty that we've had when we have an administration that doesn't want anything. And, you know, we respect certainly the public comments tonight. We've taken a lot of notes. The way that the process generally works is that when you get an 11-page report, you have an opportunity to have your development team respond in writing, and that's what we would do. And also, I think that Mr. Dunlop and his company's contract with the landowner, Simon, also gives them the opportunity to comment or see what further suggestions they may have. So this is a process, and nobody is trying to truncate anything. Certainly from our side, we want to have a full and fair hearing. That's what due process is about. I do want to just address a couple of things because they are relevant to the board's role. The board is not out of line. In fact, is fulfilling its statutory duty contrary to what Councilor O'Brien said. The board is fulfilling its statutory duty under Chapter 48. As the chair knows, as an attorney, Chapter 48 requires any zoning issue, any zoning amendment to be considered by the planning board, to be sent to the planning board, and for the planning board to hold this hearing. So what you are doing is absolutely appropriate. With all due respect to Councilor O'Brien, I think he fast-forwarded to the special permit process, which is something that would come after the council, if the council approves the PUD. And a PUD is not exemptions. Let's get it clear. A PUD is a flexible tool that says this is what we can do on this particular property. Cities and towns have them. The planning director has suggested a PUD for the entire plaza. So there is nothing, if I may finish please, there is nothing inappropriate, and it's authorized by Chapter 48, Section 9, the special permit process of the state law talks about a PUD. And we have a PUD that was adopted. And certainly we respect the comments of the engineer, member of the audience. A lot of what was talked about is special permit submission detail, where you have peer reviews, where you do water and sewer analysis. In fairness to all of the comments, which we appreciate, we would do that, and we would do that diligently. And also we will diligently look at modifications that are possible. So, you know, to actually take a vote tonight would be unfair, and it would not be consistent with what this board has traditionally done when an applicant in a $150 million project, which has many, 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 many benefits to the town, and not some of the impacts that were stated tonight. So we do respectfully request the opportunity to respond. You know, the height came up again tonight, and again, it's useful to point out the fact that the elevation where the buildings are going is around 84, 85. Brian Dundon, our civil engineer, can correct me if I'm wrong. But nobody's trying to do anything that is, one speaker up here suggested that almost everybody's a liar or something, but nobody's trying to do anything unseemly here. This is all about board. In fact, we put in much more than you're really required to do at the concept level, and that's what it is, it's a concept. The Section 612, the PUD bylaw itself, has the requirements. They go on for pages. It's in Ms. Santucci-Brasi's report. It goes on for pages what you must evaluate if you were to ever grant a special permit. So there is nothing nefarious, there's nothing but transparency and diligence that's been done on the part of this applicant. We want to continue to do that.
Okay, thank you very much. I just remind everybody we're just a recommending board, and the town council has the final say. But so yeah, if we let you come back, I mean, I would expect that we have new information. That's the whole idea.
Yes,
so,
sir.
Yep. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Member McCamey. Member Grove?
Mr. Manel, correct me if I'm wrong. This was referred back to the council.
Can you move the mic in a little bit and speak louder, Member Grove?
Excuse me?
Can you move the mic in and speak louder? I can barely hear you.
Yeah? If this was sent back to the council with a negative recommendation, you still have the ability to negotiate the site, changes to the site.
This is a professional planning board which has a statutory duty, which we want to see fulfilled. And, you know, it isn't political, excuse me, there's a lot of politics going on with this project, which results in things being misstated. A lot of politics, just deny it. A lot of politics, just, you know, take a vote tonight. That's not the process. That's due process one way. We're asking for complete due process. So, you know, I know that you made a motion to to send an unfavorable recommendation last time we were here. You know, no disrespect, but no surprise. I mean, we're part of the planning board along with Miss Coyle, and they got sued by Quincy Weymouth and the landowner because of blocking the 3 roads. So, you know, that's somewhat obstruction. We're here in good faith, and that's...
We only got to speak one
Well,
time.
the truth hurts. I know that.
Excuse me.
Mr. Grove, I fully expect that, you know, you're going to make a negative recommendation, you're going to make a motion, but we don't feel, in all fairness, fundamental fairness, that we got the staff report after town hall closed on Friday. If I can finish, Madam Chair.
I know it's getting late. I know there's a lot to say. I know from hearing your comments, many of you disagree with what Attorney Marinelli is saying, but I'm asking, he is the applicant, he's representing the applicant of this project, and he should have an opportunity to respond to some of the comments.
What I'm saying is factual, and we have the same opportunity, we have the same
I understand your position in terms of...
It's inappropriate to prophylactically just say deny. You don't have all the information.
Is that
It's
since
very
we
complicated.
shouldn't you be, you know, hashing this all out with the body that's going to actually approve it?
No, we have an appropriate plan, a concept plan. We have appropriate materials before the planning board. In fact, we've done more reports than would normally be required for the planning board. We have done a diligent job in submitting everything. The issue is really density, from what I'm hearing. And the PUD is appropriate. We're going to take all of the comments that are in the staff report, and we're going to address them in writing, in a memo, the way that it's normally done. And this should follow the normal procedure. That's what's fair, that's what's transparent, that's what's right. This is a fair amount, you know, I know the word bullying was used about, you know, some of the conduct, and, you know, we certainly feel that we're not getting the kind of process you would normally get when we hear about a $150 million project, and let's take a motion in two hearings when the board hasn't even had an opportunity to consider the information, to go back and review what we've submitted, which rebuts some of what was said tonight. So that's a normal process. We want to continue to address it, and we want the same rights that anyone would have in any project before this town. A $150 million reduced project, beneficial to the town of Braintree. You know, people talked about neighborhoods. Housing is a fundamental right. Housing is a fundamental right. Mr. Cameron said it all. Mr. Cameron said it all as far as the housing alternatives in the town of Braintree. We need more housing alternatives. So we ask that the board continue the hearing so that we can respond to the memo and that we can have a proper process. Thank you. By the way, I spoke for 45 minutes. I did not speak for 45 minutes. The number was used 45. I think the board knows that last time we were here, the public had 4 to 5 times as much time as we had. And tonight the applicant spoke 25 minutes, approximately 25 minutes. So 45 is an exaggeration. And you know, some of the things that have been said are not factual, and we subscribe to the facts. We subscribe to giving the board proper information. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Marinelli. If you want to have a seat while we go through the rest of the board comments, and if anybody has a question, we can certainly call you back up to have that answered. Member Ken.
Madam Chair, I'm sorry, I have to interrupt, please. In the spirit of trying to get this is being recorded by BCAM and will be aired, and we use that video to produce the minutes. We cannot have people talking in the audience, please. I know people want to say things, I know there's passion here, but for the sake of getting this recorded, please try not to do that. Thank you.
We've heard a lot of passion here. There's a lot of opinions. There's a lot of contradictions. Somebody used to refer to it as facts and alternative facts. It's really hard for us to determine what is what. It's, I can tell you that $500,000 a year of incremental tax revenues on a basis of $150 million, to me, is not compelling. I don't know what would benefit from continuing this, but I think in terms of process, I mean, I can live with it. I don't see there being a groundswell of change in the opinion of the town.
Thank you, Member Kent. Member Conley?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can you hear me okay? Thank you. Phase redevelopment at the plaza makes sense, but this plan falls short in that Simon hasn't brought a comprehensive plan to the table. That's outside of what the developer and the applicant is responsible for, but I think there needs to be more conversation in town between the administration, developers, and parties like Simon, so that we're getting projects that work for Braintree and its residents. One of the issues I have with this project is specific to compatibility of scale. When you drive through the neighborhood around Flaherty School, there are single-family homes, but they are single-story homes. And the issue that I see with this project and with this request for the concept, and eventually its special permitting, is that these homes are going to be dwarfed by the size of this project. I understand that the plaza needs to have redevelopment, and it does to support our town, and it's important, but that's going to be a process. And it's something that I think the administration needs to take up. It's a conversation that we have to have. It cannot be avoided. We need to have developers at that table. We have a developer that's here tonight. I think it's important that we give them the opportunity to come back. And part of this is the process. When we were at the last meeting, there was talk about due process and our Constitution. And this is part of that process. It is a two-way street, and I think it's something, it's a limited request to continue this. And I suggest that we continue it because as a town, we need to know that we've gone through the process fully and that we have really exhausted the opportunity for a developer, this one otherwise, to come back and say they didn't have that fair process, because that's an additional problem that we would have. So my thinking is that we continue this and that we really, as Member McCamey said, expect a considerable change that comes back to us in that time. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Conley. And I appreciate everybody sending your written comments and speaking tonight. I do think that there are a lot of good points that were made with respect to understanding, identifying impacts of any proposed project, and particularly on neighborhoods that it would be near. And there are issues that I can see with Common Street, as was discussed, and the comment about parking on Lakeside is another good comment. But I want to back up, as has been discussed, of where we are in the process. Right now, the planning board is being asked to make a recommendation to town council as to whether or not the developer is entitled to file a special permit, whether or not they're entitled to file an application with the town that sets forth the details of their projects, the impacts that are likely to be seen from the project, what mitigation is available, what mitigation is possible, and whether the project as designed is something that would work for the town, and have that back and forth process with the full amount of information and appropriate peer reviews and different aspects that can go in and inform that discussion. We've been building multifamily properties in Braintree, albeit clearly on a smaller scale than what's being proposed here. But we're doing that generally by the developer filing for a variance and then coming in for a special permit. Well, once they receive the variance, there's no control whatsoever over what project comes in on the special permit. This is actually a very good avenue for the town for a project to be proposed, because the town is able to get a first look at the concept, determine whether the concept is appropriate under the already put into place provisions of the planned unit district portion of the bylaw. There's a portion of the bylaw that allows project owners and developers to file an application on a project that's over 3 acres and meets the characteristics that's in the bylaw. Once that concept plan is filed, the planning board makes a recommendation to town council as to the details of it, and town council ultimately takes a vote. If the PUD is put into effect, then the proponent or anybody else, it doesn't, as was said earlier, it doesn't have to be the concept plan that comes in. There's a special permit filed, and it could be something vastly different, but it must fit within the PUD that's proposed. And at that point, there's a discretionary process as to whether or not a special permit is appropriate for the project. We don't have that oversight for other projects once variances are granted. For example, the Chick-fil-A site that's gotten continued already has their variances, and they're still working out the details of what that site plan looks like. But here, there's a confirmed special permit, and I also agree with some of the different aspects of the language of the PUD that's being proposed, and I think there's certain aspects of it that should be updated. For example, there is a portion that talks about how the planning board may consider a special permit application after the PUD is put into place, and I think that should be updated to say that the planning board may consider an application for special permit under the special permit provisions that are already put inside the PUD district, and with a specific reference to the other portions of the special permit requirements of the Braintree zoning bylaw in 503. I think that we've heard a lot on the density, and I think that there's some valid points. Hanover received a variance to get up to 4 stories, and I think that 4 stories is really the limit that I think Braintree should be looking at. And I say that the limit, and I think the impacts of any proposal would need to be looked at. But I would ask the developer to take a look at the height and see what they can come back with if we do grant a continuance. The other portion of the proposed PUD that's put into place is that it's true, it's been talked about tonight, if no special permit is granted, the underlying zoning remains in place. I'd like to see a sunset provision on that. So if the PUD is ultimately put into place, which of course has many steps between now and any final vote with the town council, that it essentially goes away in 2 years. If a special permit hasn't been filed, it isn't open at that point. So I do appreciate, I think that Simon does need to have some further interaction. Whether that's specific information on the mall or whether it's as basic as making sure that upgrades to the Simon property are taken to mitigate any impacts if this project does go forward. And that's the buffering that's been discussed earlier. That's whether or not there's any traffic controls that can be put into place to keep people from turning right on Common Street or other sorts of cut-throughs that have been taken by residents, including myself. But I do appreciate the updates of the concept plan that have come in. The applicant has asked for a continuance. I would be inclined to grant the continuance, and I would like to see a collaborative effort with the town to talk about the details of the language of the PUD that's been put into place. And I hope that happens, but whatever happens between here and the next hearing, if it is continued, I'd like to see some additional updates made to the PUD that's put into place. Anybody from board members have any additional comments?
Madam Chair, may not change any votes, although no one's voted yet. But I think that in fairness, I would like to hear what the applicant has to say. And I think it is in the town's best interest to hear any incremental information, as Attorney Marinelli suggested. So I'm going to make a motion that we continue this.
Just if I may, through the chair, at the June meeting, Member Kent will not be with us, and in July, Member Crowe will not be with us. I don't know if that impacts the motion process, just as a point of information.
Thank you for your comments. I'm going to maintain my motion to continue and give the applicant time to add any incremental information. I think that they've added information from the last meeting, and just given the timing of the staff, to give it.
Just listen. Why bother doing public comment? Why bother doing public comment?
Chance and a chance.
So if everybody could please be quiet so that he can get the rest of the information. We have a motion to continue. And Member McConnell, do you have the date for the continuance?
I'll go with the recommendation of the director.
It's up to the board. I just wanted to share. I don't know if that makes a difference or not. The meetings, we have June 13th, July 11th, August 8th. I don't know if Member Kent will be here in June. I'm not sure if he wants to be part of this follow-up discussion. I would just default to the board. I don't have a recommendation either way. In the event that
Do you need, what sort of vote is needed in either direction?
it's just a recommendation, so it's a simple majority.
I'm gonna recommend that we, it's okay with Attorney Marinelli to continue it next meeting for August? Okay.
Okay, we have a motion by Member McConnell to continue to the August meeting. Do we have a second? I'll do a second.
That was made by
McConnell. Member McConnell made the motion. I made the second.
We typically don't have the chair second. Tonight you're the chair. No, you're not.
All right. Well, then we will go back to the motion by Member McConnell to continue to August. And do we have a second? Hearing no second, I'll ask the board members if there's any modifications to the pending motion or any other motions that would like to be discussed.
Madam Chair, can I ask a question? Director Santucci, what is the timetable for us to have an additional member appointed?
I don't have any information on that this evening, but anybody that is appointed to the board at this point will not be able to participate in this public hearing because they were not a member of the board when hearings were held, so the Mullen rule would not apply to them.
Is there all right, so Member McConnell's motion is still out there without a second. I'll call again to see if there's a second on that or if there's any members who would like to make another motion. The motion by Member McConnell was to continue the hearing to the August meeting.
I'll
second.
We have a motion by member McCamey and a second by member Kent. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
410.
Yes. Four in favor.
Yep.
Member Grove against.
2 in the bag. We need 1 more.
Yeah, so that continues the meeting. Yes, would you like to ask a question?
Yes, may I ask a question? To be the fairness of being our residents, we want to understand what are the final steps, how many attempts they will have in kind of continue dragging it for being the fairness of to our residents that who taking our time to come out here and to listen, doing all our research. I would like to hear them at the board to giving some suggestion or decision on how many times would they have to keep pushing this back, because one of the tactics that we understand some people will use is just push it until the time will fly. So I would like to ask, while everybody's here, is how many opportunities they will have and what change dramatically we need in order to continue.
I can't speak for other members of the board. We'll hear the application in August. I would think that we've had quite a bit of time to look at this, and the developer has a significant amount of time to come up with a new proposal. So from my perspective, I would expect there to be a vote at the August meeting, but of course that's up to the board and what happens between now and then.
So with this, the same incident could have happened if the planning board did not provide their detailed analysis a day before. How would, I just don't want to keep having the same excuse to moving forward every time we give feedback or change, and it's not enough time. So I want to see if any option to be fairness of our residents, that how long will this drag into and how many sections we still need to come out here. I just want to put out here and ask the board for that questions. I want you going back and planning. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that's probably the best answer I can give. Thank you. All right. I think we can. It's just going to say that seems appropriate at this stage. Yes. Oh, sorry.
I just wanted to thank the board and also the public and say that I hope that we'll be able to have some dialogue with the planning board, that they will be allowed to meet with us to try to work through
he's back on the
stairs so that we can come back and have the best plan.
Thank you.